I don't know
It
why.
depends on your Wi-Fi in here too.
Huh?
Today was a really bad day inside the house. Probably.
Why is it not giving me, it's not giving me the,
Packet.
it won't even appear. Normally I can pull it up.
Can you pull it up through your mail?
You're gonna have to sign into the Wi-Fi for sure.
Tuesday.
See, normally I go here, then I go to the, and I pull it up from here,
Mm-hmm.
and it won't let me do it. Oh, here, it pulled it up now. I had to refresh. Okay. So it should open up. I think. Yeah. There we go.
You guys know of a good screen cleaner?
I use the stuff I use for my eyeglasses.
Well, I've been marking on mine and I can't get it off the screen. Taking notes since we didn't have paper copies.
Joanne, we've got some spray in the other room.
I was kidding. I said I've been highlighting and all of the other kind of stuff on my screen so I didn't have a paper copy. I was just messing with them.
All right. Call the meeting to order. I guess we have to have a roll call or no?
Mm-hmm.
Gantier,
Here.
Shropshire,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Number 2, petitions from the audience. Are there any? I know of none. Okay. Number 3, discuss possibly approve minutes of June 27th, 2024 special meeting, table July 30th, 2024.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for vote.
Gantier,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Okay. Number 4, discuss possibly approve minutes of July 30th, 2024 regular meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for vote.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes. Number 5, discuss possibly recommend council action regarding 2024 ordinance and insurance committee meeting schedule.
Motion.
Second.
By way of discussion, from what it seems, it's the same as it is, every month that has a 5th Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
And then you can also call a special if
Right,
you need
right.
to, if something comes up.
But legally, we gotta have something out there
Mm-hmm.
for our regular meetings, okay.
I have a question just on, because I know the December 30th one, this year's December 31st. Is that scheduled for December 31st, or do we schedule that a different day for 2024? Or does anybody know?
No, we can,
Right, we looked at that, and I think we moved it. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we discussed it.
and we do not have to have them if there's nothing to bring.
Right. I was just curious. I know that's the last one we have for
Mhm.
I don't
this
know that-
calendar year.
I think there's something in the charter, I know about council meetings that fall on a holiday. So I
That's
don't
not a
know that
holiday.
committee.
It's not,
The 31st wouldn't be,
just New Year's Day. Okay.
Yeah.
all right, then.
Sorry, that was just a curiosity question on my end.
I don't know that I don't know that I remember something officially being removed from the schedule, but we can absolutely cancel it.
Yeah,
By
we'll
ear.
leave it there, and if we wanna change the time, but by law, we have to have something.
You just have to have the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, any other discussion?
Nope.
Call for vote, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Number 6, discussion and possible action to recommend to council to consider amending the removal Title 1, Chapter 6, Article E, City Administrator of the Pryor Creek Ordinances.
I make motion.
Second.
So I've actually submitted to Chris 6 through 14 to be put on there, just for any clarification on the agenda. This one in particular, Mr. McBride and I found when we were looking for something else to do with the budget. That currently reads that we shall have a city administrator, and they shall have a bunch of things. My recommendation to the council is to remove the word shall and replace it with the word
May.
probably may is the most appropriate. I don't think that the city has it in their finances to hire a city administrator, even though there's no salary set in there. The education and other requirements listed in there are going to require the city to expend a fairly high salary in order to hire that position. Talking with Chase, he seems to think that it would take more work than it's worth to remove the entire section rather than just change it to may and then
May.
not hold ourselves to a point that we must do something. What gives us the option.
So are you
So-
amending your motion to include that
To
word
change.
change from shall to
Yes.
may?
Okay.
Is that second?
Yes.
Yeah, the amendment to Title I is that we're going to amend the word from shall to may.
All right, any other discussion?
That'll be fine.
Call for vote, please.
Let her get that written down first.
Oh, okay.
Are you guys? I hate double-sided stuff. Gantier,
Yes?
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Number 7, discussion and possible action to recommend to council to consider amending Title II, Chapter 1, Finance and Budget Administration of the Pryor Creek Ordinances.
Motion.
Second.
All right,
So this one, 6 through 9 are honestly all going together, but they all cover different things. This one is to amend this particular section of our ordinances. It's 2-1-3, I think, is our purchasing policy, which is where the bulk of it is. There may be some outliers of that. Section 8 and Section 9 are going to cover about a purchasing manual that was created for us to send to council to adoption. We've had multiple council meetings where the councilors have repeatedly asked for us to update our purchasing policy ordinances. I've worked with a citizen within the community to try to develop some of these things that would be more beneficial for the city to make sure we're getting the best value and that we're also following state law and doing what's appropriate as far as using the citizens' taxpayers to purchase goods. I think the way I left it vague in this is for us to roll it up to the council. I think the best action for us to do is probably to roll it to council and direct our attorney to make the proper amendments to the purchasing policy. And this is just the first step of that, is to getting it to council so that we can formally recommend it to Chase to make the needed amendments to our purchasing policy and set up the ordinances that will align with our policy and our laws.
So that's why you're saying a finance and budget administration are the way we're gonna proceed with it, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of the whole or that whole chapter, basically. That 2-1, most of the purchasing policy is in 2-1-3. But there may be some outliers outside of that he may need to amend. I don't think that we should be the ones that are coming up with the verbiage on it, though, on something like this. So I think the best action for us is to discuss it and send it up to the council, to send it to Chase and have him make the appropriate changes. With any changes that we make on items 8 or 9, or council makes on those same.
all right, so let's give Courtney opportunity to,
write what down? He's suggesting send it as it's stated on the agenda. So.
Yeah, just send it up to council.
All right.
Forward it.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Call for vote.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes. Number 8, discussion and possible action to consider recommending adoption of the 2024 Pryor Creek Purchasing Manual to the Pryor Creek City Council.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, now this will be discussed in council, and the council will need a copy of this, so they have plenty of time to go through it.
Yes.
And, I mean,
That's correct. I sent that individually to each council member last week in advance of this meeting, hoping that if they had any changes before this meeting, that
we would hear.
we would talk about it and we could make the changes in this meeting before sending it up. I didn't hear from anybody, and I'm not sure if our court clerk or our treasurer or our mayor have any adjustments or amendments that they want, and I'm definitely open to that.
clarification on some stuff.
Yes.
Okay. So the thing we want to do then is basically roll it to the council, and then we'll get our clarification and everything during council?
I'm good with getting them now.
Yeah, I'd be
Okay,
preferable to
Yeah.
do it now and then send it up to council after that.
sure. Okay.
The first, I did notice that on page 6, that it references the personnel manual, policies and procedures. We'll have to, if this is approved, we are gonna also have to amend that to recognize that this is a thing.
Okay.
So-
Which,
Where are you at?
since submitting this, I've also heard from some department heads that maybe our personnel manual maybe needs to look at as well. I know that it was gone over fairly recently, but the recommendation was maybe we need to look at everything probably once a year and just make sure that,
Oh, very
I
much.
think that
That's why
what I
we
noticed when I
put it
dove off
for
into
2
these-
years so I can fix all
Yeah.
that stuff.
what I noticed when I dove off into these policies is that they get put in and then they don't get touched again for years and years and years. So
So where were you at?
I don't mean it rudely, like that we need to take a look at the purchase manual. I think it's,
actually wise practice,
Yeah.
at least, you know, the regular, I mean, if not every year, at least every other year.
yeah.
Reviewing that. I did have a question on page 20, and this is just
Can we
for
go
clarification.
through it instead of jumping all the way to the end?
Well, okay, go ahead, what do you got there?
Cool, thanks.
I'm going to 20. Item 6, just for clarification.
You're
Um,
fine.
With the exception of elected officials, no more than one employee or department authorized to attend the same out-of-state conference, seminar, or business meeting. I understand exceptions approved by the mayor, but what about where we have agencies that are sending multiples to trainings? Is that something that we want to consider on that? Or do we want that to just be with the approval of the mayor?
So that one was one that I thought would probably get questioned. Sorry, I was trying to find it on there. Specifically, probably with our emergency services is probably where that's going to come up at. And I would guess particularly with like their union conferences and stuff like that, I know there's some, and then like the A1 conference, I know. Yeah. I'm welcome to hear any arguments on it. I really don't care.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with
personally.
it. Either way, their training is approved by the mayor,
Right.
but I think it's just, it could just, you know, create some,
Which, is there,
we'll get for your guys' input on that, so.
is there any wording that would better work in your mind? Like, I'm gonna have,
With the council board, the council, when our council sends it to legal council to look at,
okay,
consider the verbiage on that.
I personally don't have any opposition to it. I understand that sometimes there is gonna be,
I
I think-
just think it's personally a good idea, if you've got the mayor, should have a feel for what's going on, what monies are available, it's just an extra check and balance.
Oh, absolutely, that's not even, it's just, I say that again, you know, and,
And I do understand what you're saying.
you know, we have those things like where we'll send 2 officers to Durant for one training, or we'll send them to, you know, to Ada or whatever. We don't want them to not ask for that. I think if we just.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think,
We'll asterisk by it and tell Chase, look at the ones with the asterisk.
Well, and
Well-
some of the training that you're talking about is one-day training that's very easy to go to that may come up last minute, and we may unintentionally create a barrier or create an issue where somebody's gonna get in trouble for something that was not really that big of a deal, I think is what, if I
And it's
understand
not
what
the
you're saying.
intention of what we're trying to
Correct.
cover here.
At least the clarity, but, yeah.
Well, Courtney, you had an opportunity where you went to training that you had more than one person go.
This is, after I said that, like, this is for out-of-state stuff only though, so,
Well, they went out of state.
yeah,
Just put a little asterisk by it, and let's just make sure it gets reviewed.
okay.
That's all I ask.
Are there other questions or concerns?
We
She-
go back to the beginning, back to the end.
I figured you did, I just want to give,
Yeah, so
Are you,
I'm on page 8.
okay.
For emergency purchases, at the very bottom of that, it says the statement shall be attached to the requisition submitted at least 10 days after the emergency purchase occurs. I don't know why that shouldn't be no later than 10 days instead of at least 10 days after.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. Are you making these changes, or do I need to mark them on something? Because,
I can do it because
okay,
I also think on that one, what I was given from Chase the last time we had to make one of those emergency purchases was to individually notify the council of that purchase, was his suggestion, so. If that comes to and we have to, I think one time we had to buy a new toilet for the jail, that was kind of an emergency deal several years ago. It's not a challenge, and it's transparent and clear, just so the council is aware that if there was an emergency purchase made for this purpose, it'll be on the next. I think that would be a good thing to add to our policy if we're gonna do it.
I do think that this is specifically for items that are gonna go above somebody's purchasing limit though, right? In my mind.
That toilet was $4,000.
Okay, yeah, so, I think that's, yeah,
but we had to have it. You can't have a
Yeah.
facility like that
We also
without.
had a repair on an air conditioner and some other things that we've had to do even just this last year. And again, it was just notify the council that you're making that emergency purpose. It's a CYA thing, but I think it's a healthy CYA. That to have it in the policy just says notify council or,
soon as prudent.
yeah.
Or, I mean,
So if you guys.
And I appreciate the effort and the work that went into this.
Oh, yeah.
This is a lot. It's a good starting point for sure.
Were you running about page 11, number D?
Oh, I'm still getting there.
Okay,
Don't jump
All right.
ahead, Joya.
I'm jumping ahead, sorry about that.
Do you want, so it says that the person responsible for the purchase has to attempt to obtain approval from the purchasing agent, city clerk, or mayor, and make the written determination. After all of that, would you guys want something in there that says that the mayor, city clerk, or purchasing agent shall notify the council?
I think that's a good spot for it. And then no later than 10 days.
Would we need that before council meeting?
On an emergency, we don't.
Yeah, it would just be in an email,
It
probably.
says, hey, we had to do
Say,
this.
hey, this happened.
Mhm.
A question about the software capabilities that we currently have regarding RFPs and RFQs and actually issuing purchase orders, because we currently do not do that. We pay our accounts payable employees. Is that going to require additional software purchase?
I don't know the capabilities of Cassell, so I think she was
I
asking.
think it's something.
Are you asking me or are you asking Courtney?
I'm asking everyone.
Okay.
I can't give an intelligent opinion because I do not, I'm like, I don't know
Mhm.
how that would work, to be honest with you.
I'm open to suggestions if you guys have them on that.
And if you don't know it now, you can certainly bring it up to one of us that we can discuss it when we have the full council meeting, so some of these may not be an easy answer right away.
I'm on page 11. So, I'm very familiar with this type of process. I work with this type of process currently. However, it does require several other.
Would the language be better changed, or would we be better to have better software?
Repeat your question. We do not currently do purchase orders. We pay accounts payable by invoice. And in the final step,
The invoice, entering the invoice is the final step before the check is done, but the purchase order is done first.
and
We don't do
our-
requisitions.
That's usually the first step in the purchasing process is requesting, putting in that
We-
requisition.
Technically,
And then
we
the buyer
do.
or purchasing agent goes out to start seeking bids for whatever it is that's being considered for purchase.
The requisition stage, just in a typical purchase order process, is either verbal or the department head turns the invoice in to us and we do it off of that. So we kind of skip the requisition stage in an electronic format. But we still do it. It's mostly verbal if it's over 2,500 or whatever the limits are for the purchase, and then they give us the invoice for the rest.
It kind of touches up on that on page 7. And I like
It's
that.
going back and forth.
No, I didn't jump ahead this time. You were on page 8, I was back. Where it talks about the RFQs for the 2,501, and then the RFPs for 25,000 and over. I like that definition is in there. We don't typically get the quotes if it's under that 2,500. We just kind of,
If it's under 2,500, I don't think quotes are required.
right.
It's just if they're above 20, from 2,500 to basically 25,000.
But for what you're saying,
I'm just asking if our council is capable of going through the requisition process before issuing purchase order.
Is it possible to do
yes,
a
it does do
ghost
that, we
one,
just don't use it. Yeah.
just to see if it would work? Just try and do one, and see how it would work?
She says
I
it
mean,
can do
I
it.
can, but half of our department heads don't use technology the way that other department heads do. So the way that we do it, like I said, is the verbal and/or.
The overarching goal when we get to number 8 or 9, I don't have the agenda in front of me, is to get us a purchasing agent for the city that will, the department heads will go through them at that point, ideally.
Yeah, we can get to that.
Yeah.
But,
I understand your frustration. I'm just trying to,
yes, we can. We do that. With RFPs or RFQs, that is not something that we would do a requisition or anything for until after we went out for bid. Do I have any other questions on this one? No. On page 11, the blankets.
yes.
So right now, we do pretty much everything that it says, except we don't really request an increase for existing blanket purchase orders. We typically close those out and
Do a
issue
new.
a new one. So I would like to remove that unless we're gonna change our procedure, which I don't really know how to manage that.
So just strike that last line or request an increase? Because it's, the line for that is must submit a new requisition.
Yeah.
So just leave it that way. I'm good with that. I don't know how cumbersome that was whenever I,
Sorry, where was that at, Courtney?
Page 11, blanket purchase order.
See,
And then the purchasing card, the P cards, what is this and how are we gonna do this?
it's, I believe, do department heads not have credit cards now?
Department heads do, but this, if I'm understanding properly, says that any employee could do it as long as they submit the application and stuff.
not every though.
I think that's
Well, it
subject
says
to,
employees and departments across the city.
But you'd only allow employees that needed to have the ability to purchase, is that correct?
It probably needs to be,
Tweaked.
just on who can be a card holder, but we can limit it to whatever it is. I don't know what I don't know currently who has city credit cards. I know what what the purchasing policy limits are, but I don't know who all has cards.
Every department head has one, not any assistants or anything like
Okay.
that, but with the exception of Lori, she didn't get one.
Okay.
Right? No, you didn't get one. Yeah, she's the only one.
But if she wanted one, in theory, we would allow her to have one for her department. But,
Yeah.
so, current city policy is department heads, and then the mayor has one that's up to 2,500, correct?
Yeah.
I don't care if we want to fix the language in there to say that it's department heads. I wasn't aware of who all did or didn't have them within a department.
The part where it starts, the purchasing card program is the city's preferred method, blah, 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 all the way to rebates for the city. We don't get rebates for our credit cards.
Oh,
I don't feel that it's necessary to have that entire sentence.
okay.
What if we did change to a card that did give rebates? Would we want that in there? I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean, if you guys wanted to look at an option like that, we could. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
if we just put a little clause in there saying that if they do have rebates, this would be how it handled. Not that we have to have them, it's just, I'd hate to be, tying our hands if some good deal comes along.
Well, all it's saying is that the reason it is preferred is because we could get a rebate for the card, so
Yeah, it's not defining.
it's not really saying that one way, other than,
It's just
that's one of the advantages that cards sometimes offer.
Yeah. And I would make a suggestion that, just as Courtney is a department head, and she can see this, how this is gonna affect her, I would suggest before we actually have full council meeting on this, that we send the proposal to the other department heads to see how it might integrate into what they're doing.
I think this would have been a great idea to bring to us before this even.
It's probably fair. I was waiting for more people to chime in and give me input to send a final copy in, and then life happens the last 3 days, so.
Yeah,
You basically have this program in play anyway.
right, it's just not defined as any of this.
But just for knowledge, I didn't finish this till last Tuesday, so,
Welcome to my life.
yeah,
So am I scratching out that sentence that I said is pointless?
yeah, that's fine with me.
Which part is that?
The purchasing card program is the city's preferred payment method, all the way to rebates for the city.
Okay.
On page 12, still in P cards. It says that it must be requisitioned by the cardholder's department administrator and reviewed by his or her department head. That part.
Yeah, that part can be cleaned up because, yeah, again, and the same thing on the next one with the 7th. I just assumed that they came in at the end of the month. If the 7th isn't a good day, tell me what a good day is, and I'm happy to change it to, or for it to be modified to that.
Following business days, what I wrote down. Okay, on the paragraph before that, I scratched out by the cardholder's department administrator and reviewed by his or her department head. So the sentence would just end with, it must be properly requisitioned.
Yes,
And then the second paragraph, where you were talking about the 7th of each month, yeah, that should just be the following business day.
perfect.
That's kind of what they already follow anyway.
Okay.
so.
again, just grabbed a date and if I don't remember tomorrow, remind me and I'll send you the Word document to this so that
That
you
would be
can make the changes to it.
Thank you. The pre-bid conference at the bottom of page 12,
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie, that ain't gonna work.
All right.
Ain't nobody gonna end up doing all of this, I know that.
Tell me about it.
I can very much see not many people even requesting to be part of the pre-bid conference, and then if they don't show up, they can't submit a bid, if I'm understanding correctly. I guess it would depend on what the bid is for and the,
We can determine whether or not it's mandatory or not.
okay,
So the logic behind the pre-bid conferences are it removes any possibility for one bidder to say that they got information and another bidder didn't give. And so if everybody shows up all at once, so they all show up at the same time, they all get the exact same information, they hear a question that gets answered. As far as making it mandatory on the bidding, it just gives us the option to invoke that if we so wish. So
And it's probably a good idea on the
on
large projects.
a large project, it would be something that I think
You're
we
doing
would want to be.
$300,000,
A real good example of that was.
I don't think it should be mandatory. I think it should be, but we have the option to invoke it if we so wish.
A real good
It says
example
in
of
there that the city may determine that it is in the best interest to require attendance. I think that would kind of fall into that.
The May,
Yeah,
so right, because it's may and not shall, but in that specific sentence, who is the city? Is that something we need to bring to council for approval to make that requirement? Does the mayor make that requirement?
that one,
The
that probably
department
be
head?
discussed with full
It's-
council.
so it says the purchasing agent will invite potential bidders and legal notice in the newspaper. In my mind, if we want to clean that up, it will probably be either the purchasing agent, the mayor, or the appropriate department head, or a combination of them. I think that's probably prudent. Our golf course stuff right now,
Right,
If you remember right, we had an issue with the air conditioner going in Graham Community Building.
Mhm.
One guy bid for 10 ton, another one for 5. or
Right.
whatever. So that was a
Debacle.
perfect storm there for this
Yeah.
to happen.
Yeah, we can just define the city as the same terms as we used in other parts of it, just the mayor and the purchasing agent and the appropriate department head.
okay. So if it's mandatory, in the event that it is mandatory, and they do not show up to that pre-bid conference, then we are not allowed to accept it.
That's correct.
And the purchasing agent will be responsible for keeping up with all of this.
That's correct. Which that would be stated in the notice for bid of, hey, it's this, you have to show up.
Yeah. The bid proposal forms,
Yes.
I got the city of Muskogee's off of their website.
Yes.
The bidders, well, it's the bidders registration form. This is the only one that they had on their website. I don't think, so if you guys are wanting to adopt this, we can. I mean, it's pretty basic.
Yeah, I didn't include it, but I thought that we could, it's a very basic form, just gives some very general information. And the only other thing that they would include with that is their non-collusion affidavit, which
And I
it states
did
business
draft
relationship and
that
interest,
based off
but
of all of this, which is
yeah.
just state law anyway, so it
Correct.
doesn't matter. And we actually already sent it out for the other bidders.
Yeah.
So that's done. So the bidder registration form is not the same as the bidder proposal form, actually.
Where's that one at? Bid,
The bidder registration form is gonna be something a little bit different.
oh, I'm sorry. Yes. The bid proposal form is,
They didn't have that one online.
essentially, we're gonna give you your form, you're going to fill out who you are, all your interest and everything else, and then what you're bidding, and essentially, or you're gonna attach a spec sheet to it that says this is what I'm bidding. That's, do we do that already, or?
No, we do not have, for some things we do, but we need something formal for
Okay.
all types of bids, not just the certain ones that we have. So I assume that's something that I would need to draft out.
Yeah, and I'll make a note to try to help with that.
Okay, this is where I have lots of more questions.
Okay,
On page 14, when it starts talking about the opening of the bids, it says that the records will be available for further inspection in the office of the purchasing agent. So please tell me what your plans are with this purchasing agent title.
can we earmark this one? That depends on how the next item agenda goes, or, and we may change this language to city clerk, or we may leave it the same, but can we earmark it for right now to talk about in council?
Sure.
Or depending on how the next, I realize that we're not taking a whole lot of action in here that has any actual teeth to it, so maybe we could still probably talk about things that are out of order, but I'd prefer to not get out of order on the agenda.
Okay.
And then, but I think that we could talk about what the role of the purchasing agent is, maybe that'll clarify some of that.
That works. My next part on that was, it says in here, the city clerk's office shall tabulate the bids. My question was, why is the city clerk's office doing this, not the purchasing agent? If the purchasing agent is doing all of these other things regarding all of this. And then I noticed in the city of Muskogee's purchasing manual that looks very similar, that it's the city treasurer that does the bid tabulations.
It is, I just, and there was a couple other
That
things.
I understand that is not.
Correct, there was a couple other things with their manual, which was 100% highly looked upon to try to craft this. I wasn't gonna try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And 3 other cities. The treasurer there has a lot more to do with what
Yeah,
the
I'm sure she or he
bidding
does
process
that.
than ours.
Yeah.
I think probably even wants to have to do with it, if I had to guess, but maybe she does. I don't, do you want to handle bids, Ms. Blue?
I'll wait till you get to your next.
Okay. That's fair.
So I guess I'll wait for the answer for that too, on why the city clerk's office would be doing it instead of the purchasing agent.
That's fair. Inevitably, somewhere in this building is probably where the purchasing agent is gonna have to be housed.
Depending on your answer to this later.
That's probably
You're
fair.
gonna have to figure out an office.
Yep.
On page 15, the appeal and inspection of bids, I believe that should be 5 business days instead of calendar days.
Okay, I have no issue with that.
Okay. And then I was curious to find out how the purchasing agent is going to determine that,
What
why there was
page?
only 1 bid received, yes.
Okay, right below it.
And like I said, depending on your answer later, the purchasing agent may not know everything about every type of bid that goes out, so I don't know that, depending on what the bid is and what happened with it, if they would even have the knowledge to
think
come to that conclusion.
That's fair. I think the intent is to understand, for the purchasing agent to understand, did they properly,
Like,
did they or the department head, did they properly post it so that somebody understood what they were to be bidding
those
on?
basic things make sense, but my question definitely was some more specific things. If it's not,
What-
if it's
what-
going to be me or my office, we're not gonna have all of the knowledge to know about cart paths.
If I put should review, does that help instead of shall review?
I think that would be better,
Okay.
yeah.
Does that fix that? I mean, I think that there does need to be some level of review there to be like, hey, why did we only get one bid for this?
Yeah,
And if it's easily explainable, then it's easily explainable.
If I read, from what I got when I read that, this is just to basically make sure the procedure's being followed, you know.
Yeah, but it does say shall, which gives them a duty that they have to investigate it. And I think
exactly.
if it's common sense or there's a very easily explainable answer to there, then okay.
But yeah, I would like that to be changed. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm good
no
with
matter who
it.
it
I
is,
have-
it'd be
So
easier.
what word?
We're just changing shall to should.
Yeah,
The purchasing
I
agent
like
should
that
review.
word, should better, yeah. Gives wiggle room, but still gives attention.
Yeah.
Oh, before I forget about this, there are quite a few grammatical errors in this.
I ran spell check.
The spell check doesn't catch everything,
All right.
so I would like your permission when I get the Word
Got
document to fix those grammatical errors.
That's no problem.
Thank you, because I just saw another one. Most of the RFPs and stuff are pretty self-explanatory. The page 17 for the transportation and delivery charges,
Yes.
how do you expect us to do that? I mean, I think it's geared towards large purchases like vehicles and
is.
such like that, but there's not really a specification on here for that, so not that I order things from Amazon and have to pay shipping anyway, but if I order something from Amazon,
I think the main thing is the final sentence is really what it's about, is that we're not gonna pay a fuel surcharge to get something here.
but how do we
Um,
negotiate that with a business that's not willing to do that? I know if I call someone up and say, hey, I just bought all of this from you, but my counsel says I can't pay this, so you need to change all of your policies. I just can't see a business doing that.
Actually, that is a normal business practice. Whenever you request a purchase order, you request it FOB as it states in here, and then the supplier, the supplier does not charge you freight unless it's negotiated before the actual purchase is made.
Okay, so we need to tell them that it needs to be free on board at the time that we're ordering it or whatever, and then they will have that on there.
Yeah, I mean, that would be part of the bid process and the quote process. And then when the purchase order is made, or when the purchase order is created, there should be a section in there for freight, and in that section, FOB would be the terms.
And it's my understanding this is for larger, this isn't for your standard, hey, I ordered this and they charged me $3 shipping and handling.
It just doesn't specify
that-
any of that in there, so.
Is that your understanding too, though, that it's
Yes.
not for small, it's for larger purchases?
This is definitely dealing for a larger purchase
Yeah.
Well, we've
system.
had some things come up recently where we've had to pay surcharges or something similar to it in with some of these vehicles or something I think we bought a while back. Something came up. If we're not expecting it, you know, we approve, let's say $100,000, and all of a sudden another $500 pops up, you know.
Well, that was the one where we had to, yeah, had to get
That's
what it
driving
was.
back.
Yeah.
And then Frank had one, he had a repair, I believe, on I don't know, it was something at John Deere, some kind of equipment. And the employee who got fired after this, I believe, quoted us wrong. and then the supervisor or whatever caught that and gave us the correct bill, and we had to come back and get approval to pay the difference. So is that an example of?
Yeah, and it does, I mean, it says that if they're going to charge us, they have to do it, like Ms. Ballou said, in the bidding process and say, here it is. And then it's up to the department head. According to this, they'll make every effort to determine what that's gonna be and try to get it knocked off. And if they can't, then it just has to be included in the purchase order. We're not going to pay it once the purchase order is cut to pay them.
What if it is something that's lower than the bidding process, like under the $2,500 limit? That's what I mean, is it should probably be specified somewhere in here, a dollar amount or type of equipment or something. Because if you just read it as it states, it's geared towards that, but technically it would apply to anything. So you're not specifying.
I'm just trying to decide if it should be purchases made over 1,000 or over 2,500. Because it's wanting the department head to negotiate it later on in there, and so to some extent you would think it would be 1,000, but if it's above, if it's above either one of those limits, one, either the mayor's purchasing it or it's going out for a written quote, which would mean they would just need to include it inside the quote if they were doing it, so.
Everything you said, explaining all of this makes sense to have the limit at 2,500, because we're gonna have to do all of those things anyway. And
Yeah, I would say then I think that unless somebody better informs me later, then between now and the council meeting, I'm probably okay with saying anything above $2,500. I don't know if anybody else has any opinion on it or not, but I think anything under that's probably
Well, I
gonna be
mean,
reasonable to
The
know.
way it's set up, if it's $2,200, the mayor can do it without even coming to us, and he can use his discretion on something,
The intent of this is so that we don't get a backdoor charge.
Yeah,
a large
Like
backdoor
those
charge.
Yeah.
you know.
after you've already accepted the
Right.
bid, and then they come in later and say.
Especially if you got two bids that are close,
Which,
and one lowball because they added something on later, that's kind of unfair to the one who had everything included.
for all intents and purposes, it's gonna be paid if it's less than $2,500. Paid up front, it's gonna be done, and that they're probably not, so they're not gonna be billing us for it. And so anything above that, I mean, that's
Yeah.
my logic that I'm sitting here thinking about, so.
I wrote it on here after all shipments, so all shipments in excess of $2,500 should be free on board.
Yeah.
Sound good? The sufficient funds, item C, it specifically says that it's the responsibility of the department head to ensure that sufficient unencumbered funds are available prior to issuance of the PO, which is fine.
Yes.
But what if they have a blanket? Because technically blankets are encumbered funds, but they're funds that are available to spend for that specific company. They're encumbered but unencumbered at the same time.
Just for clarification, would you like us to put the will not include blanket orders, purchase orders?
I would say sufficient just scratch out unencumbered, just sufficient funds are available.
I want to say something, and one of you, it seems like when I read the charter a while back, that there is somebody that's responsible for making sure that money is available, but I don't remember if it was the mayor or the clerk, I don't remember.
I don't know what it says, but I know that Darla makes sure that that happens every time, and there's an error that'll pop up if they have no budget or no money available in there, and she's not allowed to process the purchase order if that happens. She has to contact the department head.
So can we tweak the
Request to
language
account
to
number.
fit the policy that's already in place?
Well, I think that's the intent of our,
Right, that's
what we're
why I
gonna
said
tend to
if I
chase. We're
scratch
gonna-
out unencumbered, then sufficient funds are available is more than sufficient.
I'm okay with that.
I just didn't
And
want
it's
it to
in-
say unencumbered, because if they have a blanket, technically a blanket is encumbered funds.
I understand where it could cause some,
Ambiguity.
I mean, it could just cause somebody to be like, hey, those are technically encumbered.
Exactly.
You're not able to spend them. So take that out in both places.
Yes, I didn't even catch.
First line and third line.
The prohibitions, the only thing I wrote was, the disciplinary action taken by the department head. I wrote and/or mayor because the mayor's able to do any kind of
Yep.
disciplinary action.
How does that work? I know the mayor has direct control over the department heads. I don't know what the procedure is for.
He has direct control over all employees that aren't elected.
I didn't remember that part. I did know he had directly over the department heads for sure.
Yeah. On page 18, vendor records, some of that is self-explanatory. It requires the submission of a W-9. We also require a new vendors form that we have on our own, so I would like to have that in there.
Absolutely.
The only difference is the new vendor form has more contact information and best person to contact for this and stuff like
Yeah.
that on it. And then we don't, the miscellaneous vendors area, I think it'll be in our best interest to scratch that
Okay.
because it's not something that is easy to handle in here.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Those last two sentences both.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember that one. What does it say?
One, miscellaneous vendors are to be used for refunds. Miscellaneous vendors cannot be used on requisitions, and these requests need to be addressed to the city clerk's office
Oh.
prior to use, so.
Okay, I remember it now, okay.
On F, vendor list to us means something completely different than what it's talking about in here. This is talking about having that's where the bidders.
It's a bidders list essentially.
Yeah, I would like to change that title. to
Yep,
bidders
I'm
list.
good. Is that okay? Well, I mean, the rest of that okay? It just
Yeah,
needs to
oh
be called a
yeah,
bidders list
just the
instead of a
title
vendor
is
list?
Confusing because it's, like I said, something completely different to us. The surplus property, why do we need a resolution to, surplus property? Currently, we just do it by motion.
It's probably a good question for Chase. I would think by resolution, we're clearly defining what we're actually getting rid of. I know that we can do that by a vote, but by resolution, I'm gonna say we're reducing it to paper, and I understand that we're still reducing it to paper either way. That's probably a good question for Chase, and if whatever he is comfortable with is what I would be comfortable with.
Purchasing manual, or purchasing policy, sorry. It has. A list shall be submitted to the mayor. And then the council, when presented with the list, shall consider the information and make a formal declaration of the property status as surplus. And then obviously you guys decide where.
So would the proper terminology either, let's make a note to ask Chase what he thinks would be the best one for that, and I'm happy with whatever that is, whether it's declaration or resolution, which declaration is the same as motion, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely do that. I think that the way that we're doing it now is fine. A resolution is more documentation that we
Correct.
have to keep up with and everything, so I think,
And that may be, I'll default to him, whatever he's comfortable with. He's gonna have to be the one, or his successor is gonna have to be the one that has to defend that someday.
All right, Darla told us we have to start coming up to the microphone. She can't hear. So I think one
Nina's
thing,
here not to yell at you, so.
well, I'm not worried about her. I can take her, she's easy. On that disposal of surplus property, the only thing, and somebody catch me if I am missing it, one of the practices that the city's got into is that if, like, for example, we're gonna surplus laptops, we let the council know what our intention is with those, whether they're gonna be disposed of,
That's a requirement
donated.
already.
Okay, but
In our
that's not on
orders.
here.
It's a,
Do we want to, I guess what I'm saying, do we want to include that on here, that
I have no problem including that.
in destination needs to be, the purpose of the, whatever we're doing? I get that that's the thing, I'm just saying, do we want to cover, we're covering our bases, we might as well do it right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's nice to have everything all in one spot where you can have everything you need to know right there. I think it'll help the department heads as well to know what's expected, because it's there.
I think the best course of action for this would be when we get with Chase on this to obviously look at our current surplus property requirements and add that in there.
Yep, and just make sure that they match up.
If I'm understanding correctly, that the police and fire departments will have the opportunity to receive the equipment listed for free.
Yes,
Okay,
We'll have to change some stuff to do that.
yes.
within the city ordinance.
Do you have any ideas where they are, which ones they are?
No, in fact, we went through that the other night.
That's what, well,
As
Well-
you're thinking about it, if you come up with it,
Yeah, we'll have to,
bump it to
it,
Chase.
actually,
or
where, I don't
something.
remember if it's in our ordinances or not. I know that it was contained within their contract
Yeah.
language,
That's
and that's
probably
where that probably needs
yeah,
cleaned, or just removed. I mean, if they have a city ordinance, I don't know why they wouldn't rely on that over their contract, because it's not gonna get any better than what this is, in my mind, unless they wanted to add items to it, but they're not gonna get it any cheaper.
right.
Right. Okay.
It was at market value or something was what they were talking about.
Yes, it does currently state fair market
And we were trying to say that it was zero market value, but didn't know if that was gonna be legal or not.
And I know this didn't come up, but the offset for that, for them, is that after 20 years of service, that we pay 125% lump sum payment to their longevity. So,
which typically they turn around and use to purchase.
to purchase,
for it,
right,
yeah.
so it would be,
Mm-hmm.
I would think that it would be a reasonable negotiation if it were to be offered up, but
Mm-hmm.
Okay, travel policy. On the license requirements on the travel policy, page 19, it says department directors. That should be department head, but that's more of just
yeah.
grammatical type stuff that should be changed.
I don't know that we have anybody that uses a POV or a personally owned vehicle, a privately owned vehicle for city business, but you do?
Other than like, yeah.
Okay.
Lori, and every now and then, like Darla will run to the post office, we have.
I know a lot of employees don't know that whenever you're using a,
Oh, yeah, we have some other employees in other departments that do.
I know a lot of employees don't know that when you're using a privately owned vehicle for city business, it is essentially a city vehicle. And so that's the reason for the license and the insurance requirements.
Yeah, that's pretty typical, so makes sense. On page 20, I wanted some clarification on out-of-town travel number 2.
We've already been here. We started at 6 and
I know. Unfortunately, it's against my will. It says funds for travel expenses will be included in the approved annual budget. That is just funds in general, not specific
correct,
training events or anything like that.
correct. And I think that it should be, I don't know if that should be as training expenses, because that's where everybody's travel expenses come out of, if I had to guess. Is that mean, that's how we handle it at my business,
Yeah,
but,
mine is travel and training
Yeah.
together. I pay for my
so if the
registration fees and everything out of the same.
verbiage needs to be changed to better reflect what our budget says, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
We do have a line item for training, don't we?
Yeah,
So that would,
Yeah, some of the.
well, this
verbiage
just
there
says
is-
travel expenses, and so if
Right.
it needed to say training expenses instead of travel, I would,
Okay, I do have a question in regards to everything here regarding employee travel. Would this also have to be made part of an employee manual as well?
The employee manual is gonna reference this also, so the employee has to follow this entire manual in addition to the policies and procedures manual.
Okay,
and I don't know, do we have a travel policy currently? I tried to go through the stuff that you guys got us whenever we got on, but I couldn't find it, but that doesn't mean that I didn't.
I mean, I know there's some
Look.
stuff in here, but I don't know.
My only reason for asking is that I just, to Ms. Ballou's point, is just to clean up one or the other so that they don't in conflict with one another.
Yeah, we should probably, put a star by this for Chase as well. And just go through this a little more in detail, because it's almost everything that you've already talked about. Right now, I'm on page 21. Right now, the mayor has tasked himself, AKA Jay, with the responsibility for making the transportation arrangements for travel.
Do you want to make that
I mean, this
Standard?
is really talking about out-of-state travel though, isn't, well,
Yeah.
not really any out of town.
for
but
like air transport
any
and
kind
stuff,
of
but
travel arrangements has been done by the mayor and
would you like it to be that way? I don't,
I would, as we went through, and I don't remember it was before your time on the council, we went in and we started looking at the biggest expenses that we had, and we found that lodging and travel were by far just eating our lunch, no
Okay.
pun intended. And I think there are instances where we've had trainings or we've had a class or something in a place where you're gonna have it at the hotel.
Yeah, it's the host hotel
It's
and-
just gonna, it's gonna bite, that's all there is to it. But I think what we've also been able to do is look at some of those and say, well, rather than, a 5-star hotel because we want it, we can go 3 blocks away, we've got a city vehicle and stay at the La Quinta or Hampton Inn, and we're gonna save $100, $200 a night. And so having that extra set of eyes, it's strictly checks and balances, and I would prefer, also that way we have, and we talked with, and it just dawned, we were talking about rebates and points earlier. And I literally just hit me, that was one of those things where we talked to Chase about, could we use hotel points to offset, or was that a gift? And he said that the statute is very clear that those can be used.
yes.
We can accumulate 20,000 points fast. 20,000 points is, for some hotel chains, many free nights. So we want to make sure that we're not just out there randomly buying these rooms and not accumulating those points through IHG or Marriott or whoever. And so I would really like that to stay as centralized as we can for that purpose.
So should that say the mayor or his designee is responsible for making transportation arrangements to accommodate any?
Unless otherwise not possible. I mean,
Well, at that point, you just
But at that
designate,
point, I can-
you make the
yeah,
designee,
I can
and
kick
if
it
it's,
back to
if it's Miss Standing Water or whoever, then it,
I would probably scratch it from from transportation and move it up under the
To-
general provisions.
Okay. I would also, I don't know if this is a policy or not, or just anything that anybody knows, but do we know as a city that if we travel within state, like they're not supposed to charge governments taxes on hotel rooms and stuff? So, sorry not to make you get up, but I know it's something that we struggle with when we send people to hotels, that the
Why don't you
hotels,
just pull your chair up there,
the hotels tend
Alright, the
to tend to
second row
charge
already told me
tax
thank
and,
or
you.
you can go
Coming up,
sit
so
over
I'll-
by the attorney's.
yeah.
It's okay, I could do that. Repeat your question.
I'm just making sure that
That
that the proper authorities are aware that like, inside the state of Oklahoma, they're not supposed to charge taxes to governmental entities. And we fight that a lot and usually have to call and say, you can't charge us taxes, so.
So that was another purpose in having Jay do that. She knows to look for those
Perfect.
things. I know when I went to Oklahoma City about a month ago, it was just, I
The
literally emailed them a
people at the
copy
front
of my
click,
tax exemption and they're
right.
like, you're good. And that actually saved us, I think it saved us $60-70.
Right.
So, it was a 3-night stay, not a 1 night. But the idea is, I think that's another reason why we have that
Yeah.
designee that will take care of that.
So I scratched it out under B and moved it up to general provisions number 7, and I put, I'll word it better, but mayor designee is responsible for making travel or transportation arrangements. And then right under that, it has B allowance. Is that just an error? Because I don't see anything that,
It should be
Oh, it's
B1,
B and then
and
one
it just didn't, so somewhere in there, it got out of whack on the structuring of the document, and so it's kind of,
I can
I
play.
did check it before I sent it out that it was all, but somewhere in there it got out of whack, so.
Okay.
Good idea, Chris.
Man, you watch, you won't have to come up again.
You do need to scoot the microphone closer to you though, because nobody can ever hear Chase, and he doesn't listen when I talk.
I got this.
There you go. Good job. I hope Chase is watching, so we can say that you're doing it better than him. Okay, so I can fix that. Right under where we just were in B, there's a couple of areas in C where it says department director, so I marked to change that to department head.
Okay.
The very end of that, if the employee has a city vehicle available but elects to drive their own vehicle, the amount paid to the traveler for reimbursement is 1/2 of the standard mileage rate.
Okay.
Is that? when
The only
first
thing
read
I
it,
would say to that would be is unless, so the encouragement there is to drive a city vehicle because we're insuring it, and if something happens, it's on us
Right.
for city travel. The understanding I would have in a city that has limited pool vehicles to use would be that maybe there needs to be an exception to that. And I would be open to saying that with approval of the mayor, that could be waived. Or with approval and something stating why, you know, a declaratory statement saying, hey, there are no pool vehicles available, and so they had no choice but to use this one.
And I think it mentions that in here a little further down, that if there is no city vehicles available, they're able to get the reimbursement rate at
Full, okay.
full cost. Right above that, though, it does mention that expenses involved in the operating the city vehicle, i.e. fuel and repair costs, will be reimbursed. So is that talking about if you drive a city vehicle, you've got to stop at the QT in Claremore and fill up instead of the gas pumps we have out here and get reimbursed for it?
No, I think that you can use whatever, where are you at so I can read it, I'm sorry.
In that same paragraph,
What page are you on?
page 21,
Okay, I got down.
You're talking about a personal vehicle.
yeah, it says
If you're getting a
it's
mileage,
CA.
is it talking about getting a mileage reimbursement?
It says that department heads will determine whether a city vehicle is suitable for the trip. Expenses involved in operating the city vehicle, i.e. fuel and repair costs, will be reimbursed.
Okay, if it's a city vehicle, I think you can fuel up at that pump all day. If it's POV, I don't think you can fuel up out there at all.
Right, that I understand,
Okay.
but this is saying that the city vehicle,
Let's say,
operating the city vehicle is gonna be reimbursed.
let's
Well,
say
if
you
you
go
go-
to
I think that-
Oklahoma
If you go
City,
beyond our limits,
So it's saying, in the event that you have to spend something, you will get reimbursed.
Yes,
Okay.
which at the same time, city vehicles should have com data, fuel man, I don't know what we use here, but should have something, correct? Or whatever.
I doubt
Fleet.
they
We
have
do not
anything
use the
here.
fuel card system.
Well,
We still have Wex Bank for the fuel cards. We don't use them. We have them to use sparingly because we have the fuel tanks and they're much cheaper. We have those cards reserved for when they go out of town if they
Okay,
absolutely need
but they have something that they can take and
correct.
Yeah,
in the instance that that wouldn't work, then they could be reimbursed.
yeah.
Okay,
Like when you're on your way to the airport and you run over something and ruin a tire.
Yeah, she may be talking about a personal experience that may or may not have happened to us, and a certain husband may or may not have to have come to our rescue before we got back home.
well, in order to put this in context, we need some details, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
There was no expense report given to the city for the new tire that was purchased.
Yeah, saved us some money. Okay, so you've determined that you want to leave the 1/2 standard mileage rate in there with a clause saying.
yeah, that's, I would say maybe for cause, the mayor could elect to waive that.
Would it be wise to have something in there about the department head requesting via written documentation? That be waived, or? I feel like there should be some kind of documentation with the mayor waiving it.
Not understanding the true ins and outs of how the day-to-day functions of the city operates, I would probably defer to either the two department heads in the room or those that may be listening to chime in, or to the mayor for what would work best there. I have no problem amending it to whatever's probably the most prudent for the city. I just don't know what that is.
At the very least, I think an email would be sufficient, but
And I would
Some
consider
sort.
that legal documentation.
yeah, oh, absolutely, that's perfectly fine, just some sort of documentation where the mayor approves it.
I'd like to bring up on page 20, number 6, when you're limiting the number, I know we've discussed this, but I think that entire number should be, we should strike that.
Okay.
Because there are so many exceptions where that would apply. I think I know they're calling for evacuations right now in Pawhuska, and there would be
Yeah, I
several
think
employees that.
Fire departments send
And
people
I
everywhere
just
right
think
now.
having that as a rule would be unnecessary. I mean, we're not talking about departments that have 10 people in them, we're talking about small departments. So I would move to strike that, or it is my.
I don't personally have an opinion as, or I mean, on
Would you
that.
please read the portion that you're,
With the exception of elected officials, no more than one employee of a department will be authorized to attend the same out-of-state conference, seminar, or other such meeting. Exceptions must be approved in advance by the mayor.
do you feel that would be cumbersome?
I'm with Ms. Blue, I don't have a problem striking it. I think, we still are gonna kind of look at the departments and go, okay, we can't really afford to send 5 right now, or we can't, or we can send 2, or whatever. If you guys are okay recommending a strike, I'm okay. If you want to leave it for checks and balances, I'm okay either way.
well, your
It's not
department
a
head should,
burden. Do
Yeah,
what?
I was
your
gonna say,
department head should be able to take care of that business
I feel
too.
like they should be able to assess the
What
needs
they
of
need
their
yeah.
schedule.
I don't have an issue removing it personally.
Okay, then let's strike it, if that's all right.
Sounds good.
I'm okay.
So do we need to consult with Chase still?
No.
Okay, because I think it was just that item that we were gonna consult with Chase on.
Thanks for saving us an attorney bill.
Well, a portion of it.
Yeah.
I have a question on F, insurance, and this is probably more for Courtney. I know my previous place of employment, if you used a personal vehicle, just like we would consider that all practical purposes, a city vehicle, they provided a copy of the company insurance card for you to take with you. Do we currently provide that to those to our departments in the case that they need that?
Driving personal vehicle or city vehicle?
Personal, for city business.
No. And
Do you see a need for that at all?
I would have to reach out to OMAG to see if that's something that would be covered. I don't know that they would cover anything.
I know the legalities of how it works, like it becomes a city vehicle and you're using it for city use, but I don't understand, I would be
Well, they're
ignorant
gonna
on the legalities of how the insurance part of it
Somebody will
works.
sue you.
Somebody's
if
gonna
you're
file
doing city
subrogation on
business.
it
Yeah.
at some point,
But how are they gonna be
Correct.
protected?
Can we?
And if
can we
the
just mark
employee-
that To talk to Omega on, I mean,
I
it's
think it's
a,
wise to investigate that, I really do.
And if
My-
the employee's hurt, that's a workers' comp type thing because they are doing city business.
Correct.
That part would be covered, it would just be the vehicle that would be in question.
My understanding of this paragraph is actually that the individual that's operating the vehicle, whether it be a city-owned vehicle
Provide
or
their
a
own.
personal vehicle, that they are insured.
Yes.
right.
That is
So- and
correct.
that's
That's
covered in
not
there.
the city's insurance, but it's actually that they have their own
I think
insurance
it's more
policy.
for the city, it would be just a CYA, since we would
Yes.
be reimbursing, that way it cover the legal.
I think we're,
I think either way we should.
yes, but I also like getting the answer on what it should be
Yeah.
from OMAG, just
Just
so that we
what
know.
they're gonna say first, and then determine what we want in our policy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a generic card that everybody gets that, BK would keep in his drawer just in case he has to have it. So.
Right.
But they may say, no, we're not covering that vehicle during that, I don't know what they're gonna
And
say, but
then, yeah, then we're good, but I'd like us to at least check.
yeah, I'm,
Since
I
we're-
do think it's good to check that. Good catch.
The only thing I had left on page 21 is the lodging. I've been to quite a few conferences recently, mostly with OSHO, the Highway Safety Office grant that we have that I have to attend, and they only have suites available. They only book suites for us to book at the group rate that they get.
but that's,
That's
they're,
something that gets reimbursed through
That'd be
the
outside the normal.
OSHO grant, but we are originally paying for it.
but it is, that is the normal single occupancy. Like, we're not, from my understanding with this is we're not asking for an upgrade for the city to pay for it.
Okay.
If we were, this is the normal rate that they're charging everybody to stay here, and that's
Okay.
that's what
I
we're
just
saying.
want to make sure. So like.
Right,
obviously
which, I
first
mean,
class,
like,
fine.
depending on what hotel you go to, they call suites something that's not truly a suite.
Right,
So,
okay, cool.
I think it's just talking about upgrades or,
Right, because sometimes the cheapest room we can get is hometown suites. and-
right, which is not a
Yeah.
suite.
No, I think.
Yeah.
We're good, good question.
To them it is, but.
Right,
On page 22, the meals.
Yeah.
I had quite a few questions on that. My biggest recommendation would be to remove the time frame
okay,
because, I mean, there's instances that I could leave and not stay overnight in Oklahoma City and just get up at 4 a.m. and drive, but according to this, I wouldn't get breakfast covered
I think that
because it's.
maybe the best way to do it would just to be use the GSA pay schedule or reimbursement schedule for meals and whatever that is. I mean,
I think that's, Councilman Trammell brought that up about a year ago, that it's a pretty safe standard.
yeah, and we don't have to have times, just say that we'll use that, because from my understanding, there's some built-in things within there that my use of the GSA is usually on travel, and so it's like 75% on your first and last day, but then you count your meals in between there. So we don't charge per diem for single day travel, so I don't know. specifically what it says, but I think that there's something in there about it.
I bet Councilman Trammell knows, because he deals with that a lot. That could probably be.
I'm 100% good with rewording it. Courtney,
I
with
think
whatever
he
it needs to
He
be.
could delve into that probably pretty good when we have the meeting. He does that a lot.
This says right now for travel in Oklahoma, breakfast is $16, lunch is $19, dinner is $28, incidentals is $5, first and last day of travel is $51, the total is $68. Which doesn't really add up, but
And that rate may change, it may fluctuate.
yeah, that's based off
Given the
of 2
economy.
days.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we just reflect back to the GSA rate for whatever it is for that day, and I think the intent with having the times in there is to
Just kind of.
not allow you to get a full day's meals for going to a half day's training or
Right,
whatever.
which I completely get.
Yeah.
But I think where it says when gone for a full day kind of covers that.
Yeah.
In this, it does say per diem amounts are shown in attachment A within the travel forms, but I didn't
There,
see any attachments.
the attachment is very, at the very bottom, the allowances for travel, and it's the standard meal and the mileage rates. And then it just says GSA rate.
Okay, so there's not
And-
an actual.
And I didn't title it attachment A, but I thought that that part was on its own page all alone, so.
Okay. Maybe I can put a pin on that to reflect back with the traveling stuff here, because we have travel and training forms here.
Yep. And after reviewing this and some of the contracts, I know that we probably need to carve out some language that says unless otherwise specified by collective bargaining agreements, because I think that the police and fire have some different
Yes.
meal allowances in theirs that we would need to recognize.
Mhm. I'm just gonna pin the whole paragraph.
Okay.
In administration, it does say the mayor must approve travel requests for department directors and all requests for out-of-state travel. I feel like we can probably rephrase that to match what we mentioned previously, where basically just saying that he has to approve all of it.
Okay.
The bottom of the page, C, it says that the funds will not be paid more than 2 weeks prior to departure. I don't know exactly how we should word this, but it needs to be something more dependent on the council date, because sometimes there's 3 weeks between council meetings and we can only do purchases and payments via council dates.
So should it be the,
Unless we're gonna be doing petty cash things, but
I mean, if we approve it, you can wait and get the money closer to their needing it.
that would be fine. However, if they don't turn it in the specific time frame, but their training is taking place on
I will,
X date.
it does say when possible, and it does say that the mayor may approve exceptions based on emergencies, which is, it says emergencies, but I mean, you know, an emergency could be, hey, we got this training that just opened up and we have an ability to go and they're not gonna charge us, or which happens frequently in the law enforcement and the fire service world, where somebody dropped out, I have an opening, can you send somebody? So
That part wasn't the question, it was at the very bottom, item C.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So it
Was
says
on
they
A.
can submit travel funds in advance up to 30 days prior to departure. The funds will not be paid more than 2 weeks prior to departure.
Okay, and so I think
Maybe.
that's talking
last
about
council
if
meeting.
we're giving them money for per diem to go somewhere?
Correct, which police and fire.
We do that?
We do that, yes.
Okay.
And unless they have their training turned in after whatever council meeting and I have to do a petty cash check.
Okay,
But yeah, I think it should be, the funds will be paid out at whatever council meeting takes place before the travel date. However that should be worded, but
the
Whatever
requisition
the-
for funds, or how do they handle it right now if we wanted to give them something?
they have to turn it in enough advance that I can get it paid out, at least in the council meeting before they leave, which is exactly what I'm saying.
It says 30 days, does it need to be shorter or longer?
I think the 30 days part is fine, it's just the funds will not be paid more than 2 weeks prior to departure is the problem.
So they're gonna submit it, we should approve it, and then we're just saying that we're not gonna release that any closer than 2 weeks before they go.
Correct.
What are you, I'm really
If-
having a hard time understanding, so I'm sorry.
It's okay, if we approve it, say they turn it in 30 days ahead of the departure, and we go ahead and get the PO, cut the check, good to go, that check has to sit in our vault, and we have to be responsible for that until that 2 weeks comes. I can't cut the check right before they leave, because it has to be tied to a council date, so that's why I'm suggesting that be changed to the funds will be paid out at X council date before departure.
At the council date immediately preceding departure, would that work? Okay.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Unless they have one of those that comes up a week before, hey, we've got this opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that
in the
point, we
event
can
that
make those
happens, it'd be
exceptions, I
petty
think.
Yeah.
cash, so,
And the mayor does have some latitude to approve certain expenses, and
Mhm.
so the department has an emergency situation.
right, but to actually pay those expenses out is either petty cash check or via purchase order, which is still this procedure.
Yeah. I mean, we're always gonna find an exception. I mean,
Sure,
it's gonna happen.
that's life.
And I'm not gonna be upset if an exception happens, because that's life. But the more streamlined we can get this, and the more we can get everything as regular and normal as possible, is gonna help us.
Mhm.
It's gonna make it easier for, I think, the department heads, the mayor. I think if everybody's doing it the same way, I think it's gonna be easier, personally.
A good majority of this we already do, it's just putting it on paper in one book. That's not the code book.
I did try to look at the information that I had on what we had, but
Yeah. The page 23, it says in G, it says that the city's authorized to make payroll deductions for collection of advance funds not sustained by receipt on an itemized signed statement, unused funds or vouchers not turned in within 10 days of return.
so
Sorry, I drew the line to the wrong place. I was talking about E because.
okay. And F is out there, it is in the middle of E.
Oh, cool, I didn't even notice that. I'll fix that. No. Never mind, what I was going to say,
Oh, so the purpose of those is just to make sure that people are turning them in timely,
Right.
and,
that's why the next business day is the best practice.
yeah, and if not, then we have the ability to
Yeah.
have some teeth with it.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. When I wrote my note, I must have read it wrong or something, because I was thinking it was us making a payroll deduction versus, or reimbursing them via payroll versus
I gotcha.
AP, because it's cheaper to do it AP. I think that's it.
So did I make that motion, or did Choya?
I don't even know.
Well, before you add anything, Does anybody else have any comments? And I would like to say, I think this was a good,
It was really
healthy
good.
discussion.
Mhm.
I think a good deal was accomplished, in my opinion.
Are you saying we have
Thank you for
unhealthy
getting that
discussions?
together.
I'm just saying, this
How long do you
discussion
wanna be here?
was healthy.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting
Yep.
that together too.
Well, it's always good to have a starting point to work off of, and that was a good starting point. All right, so,
Okay, Shropshire made the motion and Brown seconded.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion to apply all the changes that we had in there,
so you're amending your motion to
amending the motion to make the changes
add
that were
all
brought
these
up there.
changes that we
And
just-
also talk to Chase about looking it over.
And any grammatical corrections that need made?
That would be,
Perfect.
that would be in there too.
All right, so the motion's been amended. Let's give Courtney a second to, she can look up when she thinks she has it.
You're catching on.
Okay, second,
Did anybody else have anything else, or is that, I want to make sure we,
so you're seconding
mhm.
his, okay. So the amended motion has been seconded. Any other discussion?
She's not quite through yet.
And when she is finished, we'll call for the vote.
Yeah.
'Cause it was
Okay, I have to, you originally made the motion to recommend to council, so that's gonna need to be stated in here
Mhm.
also. So I'm gonna write, I have to apply changes, speak to Chase regarding questions, and correct grammatical errors is what it should be,
Okay.
and recommend to council?
Mhm.
I'll second
So
that.
that's the way you
Right.
understand it, and that's the way you're
Yep.
seconding it, okay, yeah.
Right.
And I've set myself an alarm for 10 tomorrow, so if I haven't sent you about the purchasing policy by then, I'll get an alarm to notify myself, so. Does it need to be carbon copied to anybody else? Yep, I'll send it to the mayor as well.
All right, I'm good. Oh, vote. Brown,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes,
Shropshire?
Yes.
When that's done, could you send it out to the department heads for me, as
Yeah.
well as the council,
Yeah.
when all the changes are made?
Mhm.
And again, apologies
with a
for
little
not,
note explaining to please, if they have anything that would affect their procedures, to let us know.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole, so that was what, 8, right?
Yes, that was item.
Now we're on number 9, right?
Mhm.
Discussion and possible action to recommend to council the creation of a purchasing agent for the city of Pryor Creek and determining compensation for such position.
motion.
Second.
Okay. I do not know everything, and so I'm gonna start with something that I hope is clay that we can all mold together on this thing, because this is coming from scratch, and so in my mind, it is somebody that would work inside this building. And I don't know that the city has the funds, nor do I think that the city has an adequate amount of bids to justify a full-time position. It would be my opinion that we seek internal applications within people that work within City Hall already and understand the purchasing policies, and offer some kind of a monthly stipend for whatever employee decides to take that task on. We're going to have Chase create something in ordinance for this position, I think, similar to like what we've done with our safety director, and be something similar to that. I'm not sure that we can recommend a compensation, but I wanted it included so that we could have a discussion collectively about what a good amount may be and what we think that the budget might be able to sustain. And I understand the budget dilemma that we are in.
I do want to make a comment. If this is done properly, it's probably going to save us what we pay at least out by having things done correctly. It's going to help us financially, I believe, by following the procedures.
We have one more thing to think about too, though. When we add extra duties and responsibilities, in the department that's already shorthanded, then something else is gonna be.
I don't disagree.
One thing I will say is Darla does accounts payable already. The majority of this is what she does already. I'm not opposed to giving her some sort of stipend, and I'm sure she won't either. I know she's watching right now. To do the additional stuff, which would be the bidding. That's
Yep.
gonna be the biggest.
Mike,
Let me ask the mayor a question. Do you feel that would be a feasible approach?
Well, I think, if we're gonna put the time and effort into this, updating our purchasing, I think it's great. I think what Courtney is saying, and that's just because she is listening, is that, Darla does do a lot of this, in her absence, whatever adjustments will be made there, but I think, it's an accountability factor at that point. If we're gonna say, here's the duties, here's the stipend that would come with it. I think there would be an understanding as adults, right? Like, hey, you're getting the extra duties, but you're also getting the extra compensation for it. With that compensation comes the expectation to do this. There's not a lot different. It's just the different T's and I's that we've got to cross and dot. And so I think it's an approach. I think, like we said, the real question is how much is that worth to us?
Can I make a suggestion? Because you two fool with this on a regular basis. Can you two kind of come up with an idea that you can, talk amongst yourselves maybe tomorrow and then come up with an idea unless you have something already?
First of all, I just wanted to clarify that, like I said, Darla already does the majority of this, and I would hate to take her from the job that she's worked so hard at for the last year to learn and really improve the processes in that with my help. But I think it would obviously be in everyone's best interest to just give her a new title instead of just deputy clerk. But I also don't know, I think, obviously this is gonna be a lot more work for her to do to manage the bidding part of it. But I don't know at the same time, is it the best interest of the city to say, hey, we're in this major budget crunch and we can't spend a dime, but give someone more money?
I'm curious how much stuff will wind up going to bid. Like, to truly go to bid would be anything over 25,000. I don't think that there's probably more than, I don't know, a dozen projects a year maybe?
So I think when we look at some of that, those projects, a lot of those projects involve infrastructure solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And they handle all.
part of that engineering is that engineering fee that we pay covers Dale doing all of that bidding process. He has his bid sheet, his bond checklist, and he goes through, they come in, they do all that. So I don't know that there'd be a lot of additional projects in terms of the day-to-day stuff, other than, if we were buying more dump trucks or heavy equipment or some kind of large purchase. But in that element of, covering our bases.
They are who the department heads would go to, or if they wanted something purchased, it's gonna be above their limit or your limit. So they're gonna have I don't know how much our phone rings about that already, or if department heads are kind of handling it or what, but.
If there's a purchase that they need to make that's over their limit anyway, they usually check with her about funds and check with him first, but she's typically the one that has to go even get his signature on the document and stuff, so she's still already doing all of that.
I'm very comfortable with the two of you getting together, and I understand where our budget's at.
Like I said,
This is a while I'm gonna use the words heavy load, I understand it's something she's already doing. The heavy load is the learning how to do the past year's worth of work that she's learned how to do, and in my mind, there should be some compensation for somebody that's doing that. It is not an easy task to handle government purchasing, and there are lots of stuff that goes to that legally that it can become a spider web if you're not careful.
But if you open that can of worms up, payroll, and HR is the same type of thing. I mean, if you really say that, there's way more than just one job duty that would be the same.
I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
I just don't know that I can also make a
Right.
valid
So
agreement to say that
if I can
it's
make,
no different than our emergency services where everything's a
But-
specialty
Courtney, maybe
or an
you and I
incentive.
can talk about this in the morning and see where we've kind of ballparked some thoughts, some numbers, and then when that comes back to council, we can be prepared for that discussion.
Yes, I think that would be a
And
good,
that way,
Mhm.
we can bounce our thoughts off of each other a little more as we consider.
because
what
you have more of that inner working knowledge of what goes on with that than we do. So that's why I think you two could probably give us a better reference point, I guess would be the best way to say it.
Okay, so as it's stated on the agenda, you guys would be fine to still recommend it to council with us getting these details, the agenda items vague
Mhm.
enough that.
Yeah, and I would make a suggestion that we, no, never mind, I'm good.
But yeah, we can discuss that and look at our pay plan and determine where it would be placed on the pay plan. That would have to be amended and approved by council in the event that this is created too, so.
Mhm.
Because I really believe this is gonna protect the city if somebody is designated to keep an eye on this, because we've had problems before, our current mayor, that we lost probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, for procedures not being followed correctly.
Now, I wouldn't go to say that that's not something, are you giving this title the authority to tell department heads what to do?
Yes.
Because-
When it comes to this specific policy, they do have that title.
Okay.
Or do they do
That
have that
authority.
ability?
That
Well,
authority.
and that ability is, your purchase will not continue until this is fixed, or,
I think the appropriate verbiage input, to protect the integrity of our purchasing policies.
correct.
And it's not necessarily giving an authoritative or any kind of
Right, like,
autonomy
you can't do
over.
this, this isn't gonna continue.
But,
Okay.
if you look at, and I could be wrong, but if you look at downstairs, when they're with their purchasing person, when a purchase comes in and it exceeds what they're allowable, they're told, nope, gotta figure a different way or do something else.
Right,
And so I think it's just giving the autonomy over the integrity of the purchasing policies.
And I would imagine if there was ever a problem, it could always be brought directly to council if there was a legitimate concern. And I expect it would be rare, but I'm sure having that flexibility that it could come back to the council to make an exception or something.
Okay.
Just a thought. What do you think about that, Tyler?
Yep.
Toya?
Yeah.
So if there needs to be an exception, it could come back to council.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I don't really think there will be, but just to cover bases, so. All right, any more?
Does that help on what we talked about on the previous item, though, on some clarity?
yeah, I think.
With it all being within one central office, would that kind of absolve those issues, I believe?
Yeah, so technically I'll have to bring this up at the council meeting because we've already moved on to a different agenda item, but since it says Office of the Purchasing Agent, we would, at the council meeting, to amend that to, the city clerk's office. And then really for the tabulation of bids, that could technically still be the purchasing agent shall tabulate the bids.
Okay.
So,
Just wanted to make sure that it provides some level of clarity on those issues for you, though.
yeah.
Maybe make a side note that this is contingent upon the approval and passing.
Correct.
Finalization of the purchasing process.
Yes.
Yeah, these are just,
That way, there's just no one like, okay, we're just gonna do it next week and start, but we don't have it finished. So
I mean, when we go through this in the council meeting, we're gonna have an understanding already that this is a mesh and it's interlocking pieces that's gonna, you know.
If, And if it's possible, whenever you guys are discussing this, if we could kind of get an idea of how many times we're sending stuff out to bid throughout a year, maybe, just a general
Yeah.
idea.
So it's actually a requirement for me to keep up with that
Okay.
because we have to turn it in to the auditor
Okay.
every single year. So it's something that my office has always been tasked with. It's just never been specifically tasked to the accounts payable.
Okay.
clerk.
I think that would help in having those discussions on appropriate compensation,
Yeah.
is understanding.
Yeah, but the bids have to be tracked.
Okay.
All the bids that go out I have to have documentation on all of that. It's required.
And we are assuming she wants to do this also.
Well, we'll
As
have
long
to
as
take
we're not creating
applications,
a whole
I
new
think.
position and I gotta shove someone else in a broom closet
Yeah,
and not take my deputy clerk's job away, I'm fine with it, because we're already doing it, so.
right. But that title will give some abilities to be able to say, hey.
Yeah.
All right, so,
When you're discussing, I mean, and I would like Ms. Coates' input on, is this task going to increase what she's doing, or is it going to basically do what she's doing already, and now we're just putting a manual in front of her as well? So
Yeah.
we have an
yeah.
understanding about that.
That is pretty much what's happening. The only thing that I can foresee being a bigger task is her keeping up with the bids between 2,500 and 25,000, because that's typically something that Jay and I handle.
Okay.
But I don't think that that's something that is going to really impact her job.
I just think if we're talking about increasing compensation, that we need to understand what of her workload we're changing to understand what we're increasing, if at all.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
okay, so right now, how is this motion reflected so that we can,
I just have it as stated on the agenda to recommend this to council.
I think it's fine as is on here. I mean, I think we've given you guys some direction to bring it back to the council with some more information that
so,
we can.
yeah, this is gonna come,
Yeah.
and then you'll have supplemental information for us to consider.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Good for a vote?
Yes.
Gantier?
Yes,
Shropshire?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
so that puts us to
Number 10.
10. Discussion and possible action to recommend to council to consider amending Title I, Chapter 6, Article C, City Attorney of the Pryor Creek Ordinances to require notification of legal action or claims being filed against the city of Pryor Creek.
Motion.
Second.
I do have a question. So when it's saying notification, specifically who's to be notified?
So
That
that's
would-
what we're going to talk about on what the notification process is, and
So is
since
this
it's gonna be
a
a
blank
change-
statement right now?
yeah,
that
it's gonna,
will- okay.
since it's gonna be changed, change the job duties of the city attorney or assistant city attorney in ordinance, I think it needed to start here. But I think that there needs to be some notification process if we're having tort claims, workers' comp claims, anything that could potentially impact the cities financially, or our image. I think that that's something that we should be made aware of. I understand that our city attorney may not want to give all the details, but I think that there could still be a notification process, and so it's my recommendation that we send it to council and we discuss with our city attorney about what a good process would look like for him.
Okay.
But just so that we understand it.
I'm good with that.
I would
will
make the motion
say,
that we forward it to council.
Yeah, it's already gonna be going to council, so. I will say for workers' comp, we can provide, and we have before, at least a couple of times under my tenure, a update in the ordinance and insurance meeting of the status of some workers' comp claims, but we're not allowed to obviously give personal information for
Correct.
obvious reasons, so it's usually just the claim number and kind of what the status of those are.
But the workers' comp claim, which, yes, I understand that, but it's not the same thing as a legal suit coming after us.
Correct.
The workers' comp, we have insurance for that's covering
I think it's good
It's
for
not
us to
something
understand that there's
Yeah.
something in
to
the
know there's
ether out
something
there.
going on, but we don't have to know as much as we do if, say, we're being sued because one of our city vehicles ran somebody over or something like that, then that would be a lot more.
Way different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the tort claims, I will say those are very few and far between. I don't even know if I filed 10 in the last year and a half that I've worked here under city clerk, but those typically don't impact our budget, I would say. That's something that's usually covered by OMAG.
And the back end of it is also a status update on once something is disposed of, one way or the other too. But again, not being an attorney, I think it's a good discussion for us to have with our attorney about what a good notification process can be, not only for us, for the public. At the end of the day, it is the public's money. They have a right to know what we're being involved in, so.
Right. I get that.
All right.
I'm curious to know what his answer will be too.
I just wanted to start it here so we could punt it up. That was-
Any other discussion on number 10? Call for vote.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes. Number 11, discussion and possible action to recommend to council to consider amending Title I, Chapter 6, Article A, City Clerk of the Pryor Creek Ordinances to require all financial statements from the preceding month be timely and accurately completed by the 22nd of the following month and delivered to department heads and city council members by the 23rd of each month.
Motion.
Second.
I do know there's something similar later on coming, so I mean, address them both.
I don't think there's any way in the world that this can happen. I don't think you're
There
gonna.
may not be.
I
And
don't think there's
so
enough.
for round numbers, she said the 15th, the last time we were here is whenever I think things officially close, I thought is what
we usually have all the bank statements by like the 10th.
okay. And I went 7 days from the 15th. I understand with Miss Malone leaving and also one of our temporary, please know that I understand that you are completely buried right now.
Good, because I was very angry on Friday.
I'm positive that you probably were.
I will say
I-
that I talked to her Friday, and the August financials are balanced, so I can run the reports after I pay our employees.
Okay.
Once payroll's out of the way, I'll be able to move on to something like that.
I'm going to say this, and it's not a dig at you. It's frustrating to know that we're in a budget crisis and be in almost November and only have 1 month's worth of financials.
Which I completely understand. It's just out of my control.
My hope is that we can put something in place to try to get that better. And I'm very open and willing to work with you on whatever that is.
I would suggest, if you want a specific time frame in here or date, I would say by the end of the month would be acceptable.
I'm happy to do that.
At the end of the following month, obviously.
Yeah.
So we'll change it to the end of the month.
Yeah, if you really need a date in there, that's what I would suggest. I feel like that's doable for the two of us because it's not just me that does financials. She has to do her part and balance it, and then I have to run the reports after that, make sure there's no errors, and fix those errors, and fight with Cassell.
I hope you don't take offense to this. I am very much a date person, whereas I will have a tendency to push things off as far as I can unless I know I have a hard date that I have to have it done by, and having a hard date in my mind it will hold my feet to the fire. I don't mean it rudely to hold your feet to the fire. I just want to make sure we're getting our financial statements timely so that we understand where we're at. And
Because it's
I
difficult for us to
one-
make a decision when we don't know where we are.
I 100% understand that you are buried right now, and so is your office.
Unfortunately, it feels like I've always been buried, so.
But
Well,
you've
then-
done a lot of changes.
I got a temp for a couple months of bliss, and then Lisa left, and then the temp left at the same time, so.
I'm concerned, though, at this point, if we actually take action on this item, and as you said, would hold their feet to the fire, something would have to give. Either the payroll would not get paid, right now, it's the financials that you're not receiving.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that
That's the one thing we're not getting, but it's not the only thing in the city's wheel.
Right,
It's definitely
so,
not the only thing that's getting.
and sometimes those things are completely out of her control. And we get them, as soon as we get them, we process them. Typically, our line of communication is very open. And I find something, I bring it to her attention, and when she has time, she is able to address those things, and then we're able to move forward. Right now, I just finished the general fund for, before this meeting, for the month of September. So it is the 28th, so,
29.
yeah. So, I do think the last day of the month, in a normal situation, is acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I'm fully staffed, I feel like.
Yes,
When my staff that I had recently is replenished, I feel like that is a doable.
And trained.
Yeah, and trained for sure.
You lost
Wow.
a lot.
While I have no problem speaking on your behalf in the city council meeting next week on that and saying, we're gonna put a date. If there are extenuating circumstances, that's fine. Please understand that I have no problem speaking on your behalf on that as long as extenuating circumstances don't become a crutch to lean on for every month.
Right.
That would be my,
Maybe if you're changing all of this, have something about an extenuating circumstance, be notified, like give you guys notification of that.
yeah, I'm fine with that, and I'm fine with putting the end of the month. Like I said, I grabbed an arbitrary day that was basically 1 week after you said they come in. And are you less angry?
Yeah. It's
Okay. All right, fair enough.
Do you,
I also ate.
can you guys tell us honestly, I mean, I know just how many extra hours you spend here on a weekly basis?
Well, she's been
And on
here.
weekends?
She's been here both nights that we've been here, so.
Well, not only that, but they're here a lot of nights that we're not here, and you
Courtney
can
was here
call
after
on-
I left at 10 last night, so.
You can call on the weekend, and they're working weekends, so.
Yeah, it is no,
It's a nightmare, I'm sure.
I actually did do a log in Excel last year, just so that I could kind of see what my hourly wage was, just based upon how many hours I was spending here a month, and it was no less than 80 hours.
Right.
Part-time.
That, and that's a month's worth of time. There's been months where that has gotten so much better. Courtney has digitized the entire office, and before we were going through a whole ream of paper for 1 month, day by day, by line item, for everything that was being processed. Now, every receipt from golf is scanned in, and if I have a problem or I have a discrepancy, I can go down to that day's deposit. It's filed by date, pull it up as a scanned report, and see what the difference is. So I have 2 days in the month of September that there were discrepancies with golf. I'm just bringing them up, no dig to Dennis, but there were 2 dates. So
And that's pretty
That's
common with all of
yes.
our departments that we
Yes.
do with financials. It's not just normal.
right, I mean, and the rec center too, but we have, I think we counted, it was 13 pages daily from the rec center that is scanned in as a report. So, on those days that we have to dig and find where there's a problem,
Takes time.
it does take time, and then I'm not picking on golf and rec, I'm just using them as an example. I reach out to them at 7, 8 o'clock at night. They're not in the office. It may be a Friday night or a Saturday morning. They're not getting back with me until they're back in the office. Or, of course, Dennis is there about every day, so,
Yeah.
but, they're getting back to me when they have time
Right.
to get back to me, so those things do take time.
And then coordinating our schedules is a challenge sometimes too.
Yes.
I would only add, I guess, on the extenuating circumstances, can we just add an approximate date that we would receive it if that's the case? Is that fair?
Yeah,
And then we're just gonna tell you, I do myself a favor and say it's a day or two later than what you think it will actually be, just so that it's on time. But
just like,
at least it gives, if the council's expecting it on the end of the month and it doesn't come in and you're like, hey, I got this, and this going, but you should have it by X, Y, Z, I would think that it would be easier for everybody to take.
And you had an instance too when they changed out your servers, and that didn't help a lot, did it?
No.
not initially. We're still working on it. It's getting a lot better.
I tried to keep track of my hourly rate, and I got really frustrated and quit, because
Well,
it
and
was
I
like
did.
negative, I think.
I quit doing it because, and that was a month that we actually had to go to training. So I calculated what would have been an 8-hour day, and typically I don't work an 8-hour day for the city. So. But anyway, it just, I wanted to just make sure that I was documenting it for my own personal records. I haven't done that in a while, so.
Are the terms of what we've changed agreeable with, I mean, do you think that that's a feasible
Absolutely.
statement? Okay,
Absolutely. Not under the current circumstances.
I don't want-
but
I understand,
yes.
and I understand that we've been in uncommon circumstances
Yes.
recently. I'll amend my motion to what we, at the end of the month unless extenuating circumstances, and then,
With notification.
yeah.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
When you're ready, call for vote.
Okay, so I have that the statements will be, from the preceding month, be timely and accurately completed by the last day of the following month. No really point in putting working day, because I work just about every day, doesn't matter. And delivered to department heads and city council members, period. Just delivered. 'Cause
The next
I
business day?
deliver them to you guys basically right after I run the report.
Okay.
Once it's clean, I send it out, so.
Okay.
And then I put, in the event that this is not feasible, the city clerk shall notify department heads and council with an explanation, and I ran out of space to write the rest of this, and turn in the completed reports by the first council date of the next month, which
Okay.
is essentially gonna be at most a week. Usually it's 4 or 5 days, so.
Okay. The only thing on the notification that I was trying to honestly get to is where we get our financial statements when we walk in the room for a council meeting, and then we're trying to conduct a council meeting, but we're also trying to go through things.
Which I get.
It's
But
just
typically I
inconvenient.
just finished them 5 minutes before that, so.
I understand.
Does that language work, though?
I'm okay amending my motion to that.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Call for vote.
Brown?
Yes.
Gantier?
Yes.
Shropshire?
Yes.
And number 12, discussion and possible action to recommend to council to consider amending Title I, Chapter 5, Section 1, Mayor and City Council of the Pryor Creek ordinances to determine the length of term for committee members and establish when the nomination of committee members shall occur.
Motion?
Second.
Okay. And I know you have a reason why this
Yep.
came up.
It's same thing with some of our ordinances. I think they're well intended, but they fall short of giving true clarification. When we establish committees, there's actually a very specific process on how those committees shall be established and what those committees shall do, the length of term, if any, but as far as how long the committee shall exist, but it doesn't define how long committee members will be on a specific committee. Much like our ordinances, this is a Tyler Brown opinion, not the opinion of the council, but I think it's one that is worthy of discussion. I think that we serve ourselves better if we are revisiting this probably yearly, since we stand the reality that at least 50% of us could be new every year. Just revisiting it every year and letting the council determine what members should be where on the council. Our ordinances just are unclear on what the length of term should be on there. I don't know what the proper cutoff day should be. We take office in May. A new fiscal year starts in July. So somewhere in there probably needs to be when it is, but I understand that sometimes there are things going on with insurance negotiations, collective bargaining negotiations. There's just different things that are going on at different times that may make that need to wait until after the first part of the fiscal year for revisiting that, but I'm more than open to having discussion. I just think that we're not doing ourselves any favor by not having any definition at all on it.
I agree, there's no real definition. I do know that the process has always been, because we've always done it this way, my favorite phrase is that, like, if you were to leave your position, whoever replaces you is gonna be on that committee
Right.
until the term is up. And
Right.
so that's really just the only thing, otherwise you're just on there for your time.
And whether or not they actually have the skills for that, whereas they may have it in another committee that they're better at. It's,
Right.
so, yeah, there's,
So it would just be, I would like us to recommend to council that it goes to council and the council has a discussion with the mayor and probably whoever needs to be involved, but about establishing a good firm date for,
a policy.
you could go biannually, but I think probably annually is probably the best with the chance of council members swapping around and everything else. It would just say, hey, on this day, we're gonna establish our committee members and go on.
I would
And we
love for
could
that.
keep them like they are if we
Yeah.
so choose.
I would love for that to be May 1st, because that's when any new officials would come in.
I have no problem with that. Like I said, it was just the
It's hard because I
if we're negotiating insurance on May and then we swap members in the middle of it, it's like, or they want to swap members, but they choose to not swap us because we're in the middle of a negotiation, and then it's like, well, now what are we?
Yeah.
So I understand it,
Budget.
and that's like, I don't know what the best day is.
Yeah. I guess in the
Yeah, I'm
event
kind of
that
with you. I think it's either gotta be before or after, so it's either gonna have to be like
October
May or now.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, now, 99% of the dust has settled right now. This would be- Unless you're in the clerk's office.
Thank you.
But I guess what I'm getting at, I mean, we realize budgets and a lot of that stuff is done. Now would hypothetically be the time where it would still allow enough time before the next fiscal year for somebody to get their teeth in and get a good understanding of whatever it is before those, whether it's workman's comp or insurance or, you know, it's either gotta be.
The budget should be done, those things are gonna
I
be,
don't feel like lining
streets,
up
but,
with the fiscal year that's definitely not the answer.
right.
We have
That's
too
like
much
the
changing at
busiest
that
season.
point. but-
So perhaps we would recommend that any incoming member would replace any outgoing member on any vacancies in that committee until
Until the.
that date every year. That way
I
that
think
the committee
that's the only
stays,
way to do it,
that way that the committee stays, I mean, unless you have, if you have a committee that everybody got voted out, you're gonna have to do something about it, so it would at least cover us in that instance.
Well, the 6 months mark would be December 1. I mean, so maybe that would be a good day, the halfway.
I'm honestly indifferent, I just think that we should just establish a day, or whatever.
Well, I think then that would be a good discussion for council, to establish, specifically, to establish a date and how that transition.
And as you said, there are several dates that have merit. We just have to figure out, right when they're elected or
Right.
and different points of view can be presented and council can figure it out what they feel is the best, but, December is a reasonable one.
October could be reasonable.
Could
depending on
be.
your-
Yeah, I'd say anywhere from October to January would be
Right, and then you're gonna start kicking stuff off in January, so.
dead season.
And we do,
November, right?
and we usually, or at least a good portion of the time, will know before, you know, before April, if there's gonna be a change,
Right. Or not long after.
or right.
The first week.
Maybe we could ask you guys to take 2 dates to the council, a fall date and a spring date.
Yeah.
And say, which
If
of the
they
two
want-
does the council feel would work better?
I'm,
That's a reasonable approach.
I have no problem with it.
I'm
I
good
just,
with that too.
I wanted
We don't have
the
a-
discussion going more than anything.
The first council meeting after May 1st.
You just made somebody eardrums popping.
So either that or we say November 1 or May, the first council meeting after the election.
I'm happy with us discussing it as a group and coming up with a good date.
That's what I would say. Provide 2 dates rather than an open calendar.
Yeah.
Or at least the seasons,
Yeah.
spring or fall.
And there's pluses and minuses on both of them.
Exactly. I don't really know what the best answer is. I think we should have something. I think it would make our lives a lot easier, but
Well, as we think about this in the next few weeks, it'll,
the next,
next week,
Next 6 days.
yeah.
that,
Okay, so are we amending the motion?
Do we need to amend it
I
with
don't
any
think we need
actual
to amend
dates, or
it
do we just leave it
because-
open-ended and understand that we're gonna bring up?
2 days.
Yeah,
because it's gonna be up to the mayor to allow the discussion, just like, you know, it's
Well, you guys
prudent
are
to
right.
allow this discussion, so if it's helpful, it'll happen.
Okay.
So call for vote,
Gantier,
yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown?
yes.
Now, I guess we're on 14, right?
13.
13.
Discussion, and some of these are so similar, it's hard to keep them together. Discussion and possible action to consider amending Title I, Chapter 5, Section 1, Mayor and City Council. And, Mayor and City Council oath Pryor Creek ordinances to dictate that the chair of each committee be entrusted with the setting of the agenda for their respective committees.
Motion.
Second.
I don't want to rehash what this is about. I just want to think that as a committee chair, it's their meeting to run, and therefore I think that they should be in charge of the agenda for it. I would probably say that that should be, if it's not already, also extended down to our boards. No different than our city council meetings are the mayor's to run. It's his agenda, and
My personal policy, if a councilman has a legitimate request, if the mayor wants to put something on, I would be stupid to say no,
Right.
to be honest.
Especially with ordinance and insurance,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
typically gonna have something that needs to be on this agenda every year, and that's our
Yeah.
insurance stuff. So obviously, I'm gonna need stuff placed on it.
Yeah, and if you come to me and something needs to be, it needs to be there, just,
Right.
so it's not a power struggle or anything. The only thing that would happen is if somebody, a council member or somebody come with something and it should go to a different committee because it's not really needing to go here first or something, that might be, or, you know, maybe it's something that we're gonna be discussing
Well, let's talk,
2 weeks later
let's
already.
talk all of the committees.
Yeah.
Street department.
Yes.
The people on the street department, unless the engineers and everything are telling them what they're needing to do, they're not gonna go say, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this on the agenda, because until we get right up to the time to do it, they don't know all the projects that are coming up until the engineers bring it to them. Budget, that changes right up to the last minute at budget. I mean, there's things that come on the budget that, you know, is, like I say, kind of a last minute thing.
It
So
would just-
everything has changes.
yeah, and it would just be, in my mind, there's an agendas email that this goes to, right?
Yes.
And the committee chairs would just send, hey, I need these things put on the agenda,
Yeah,
just typical as it is.
and we have that ability.
Yeah,
In fact, I get a call from Jay, do you have anything you wanna put on the budget committee at this time?
I've had her call me.
And she calls every one of us to ask us if we have anything we wanna put on there. So,
This committee is a little odd
Right.
because,
yeah, it's different.
you know, you got the tail wagging the dog a little bit more on this one because of the administration knows some things that's coming down the pipe that we don't know. I get it.
Would it be wise to treat this kind of like the council agenda for the committee chair, such as we basically draft up the agenda, you would see it, add whatever you wanted to it, and then you're the one technically filing it with me?
Well,
File it, I post it, just
we
like-
also have the addendum.
Yeah.
You know, we have
Well-
lots of addendums, because we wanted everything out earlier, so we get it out earlier, but then there's, well, this has gotta be added to it, so we have the addendum to come out the day before and catch everything up, so
But
that's
you-
kind of
You
another.
got technicality and you got practicality. Technically, it's the council's committee and whoever the chair is. But in practicality, there's stuff going on that you know about that needs to be there. And so cooperation, it would be good, like I said, I'm not one that's gonna say, no, we don't need to put something on the agenda, and with rare exception. But good communication ahead of time, you know.
That's
I know me as a committee chair, I've had stuff pop up and I'm like, I had no idea what it was, and here we gotta discuss it.
Mhm.
This, I think, would help keep that.
Well,
from
another
happening.
thing too, we've just proven on this one that, the chair has brought up several things that we needed to talk about,
Mhm.
okay? So the system's working so far.
Yeah.
I think,
I don't wanna
Like-
rehash why I put this on here personally, but
you're just here stirring up stuff.
no, I don't wanna stir anything up. I wanna leave things lying, but
I think.
I just want some assurance that that's where it would go to.
Yeah.
I was actually speaking to Jay about this earlier today, because specifically on even this agenda, it just says posted by me. I think it's wise to have either the mayor or the chairman sign this and
Yeah.
have that final approval before I'm filing it.
That'd be fine.
I'm fine with that, because, I mean, it says on here, you know, agenda item submitted by Gontier. Yeah, I did submit it, but it wasn't my agenda item, if somebody asked me to put it, you know?
Well, that's fine, but I mean, it got on there.
It got on there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like I said, even if it's somebody that's not on this committee, if it's another council member that has something they really feel needs to be discussed to get the process started,
Well,
I'm in favor of doing
I
that.
think we've seen several times where there were three councilmen that put in a request and it got put on the council.
Mhm.
So that system's working.
Mhm.
So,
The one difference for committees is it's almost awkward to have to go out and get three counselors' signatures that probably aren't on the committee to wind up getting something on there if that's in that instance.
Okay.
Because it's like they don't really have any involvement in that, but if that's what it takes to get it on the agenda, I don't know, it seems very cumbersome rather than,
that's usually just on the council agenda.
yeah,
That's really not on our committees and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this would be basically verbalizing and setting it, that what we already are doing, so.
Well, I think, I'm
With the
gonna
addition of getting the
make,
committee chair.
make a brief comment. I think, and I've said this to many of you, Tyler and I have talked about this repeatedly. I think the big thing is the communication piece. You know, the approach, the communication, because there might be things, you know, we look at the street committee this last week, we canceled a meeting, and no sooner than that meeting was canceled, we got the engineering report for the
Project.
Highway 20 project, so I called that committee chair and I said, what do you want to do? I just got it. He made the call, pass it on to council. So again, I think that the element is just the communication piece. There's things that, like you said, that you're not going to be aware of, no matter what committee you're on, that Courtney will be, that I'll not be, that I will, or whatever. It's just that communication piece and understanding that properly communicated. I think that's the best way to do that going forward. You know, we just have to work together.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so is there any further discussion? So there's call for vote.
Just to clarify, you guys aren't changing anything about the motion.
Just send it to council.
Yeah, it's just gone to council.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gantier,
Yes. Number 14, right?
yes.
Discussion and possible action to recommend to council to consider amending Title I, Chapter 5, Section 1, Mayor and City Council of the Pryor Creek Ordinances to determine the procedures for nominating the president of the council, length of term of nomination duties, and notification process for when the position assumes the duties of mayor, and the notification process for when the mayor resumes their duties.
Motion.
And is there a second?
Yeah, second.
And this is something that Tyler's gonna explain that is pretty important that we, I think, address.
So there's a state statute out there that identifies that it should be done at least every other year on odd-numbered years. That is essentially, well, there's a state statute out there that defines one way of being able to do it. Much like the committees, and I've had this conversation with our current council president, it kind of explains what's going on there, but it doesn't necessarily explain when it's extremely vague. And what's that?
So I've been there, done that.
Right, and it doesn't have any real process as far as, same thing with committees, as length of service or,
Annual, biannual, when the
Correct.
mayor comes in and there's a new one, and it's very, I know you and I have talked about that before.
Well, I think the, you know, and I'm just gonna speak as someone who's been that and was that for quite a while. You know, the conversation, Chris, I think we've had, Joy, you and I have talked about that. I know probably most everybody in this room, we've had that conversation, was one of the previous mayors, I said, okay, you're getting ready to head out of town, you're gonna be gone for a long time. Your method of travel leaves a lot of risk for you not coming back, weather, et cetera. Is there anything I need to know should something go south while you're gone? And it was, you'll know when you need to know.
right, which is not proper.
It's not proper, but the other thing to that is also that when you take that position, nominated by your peers, there's a lot of responsibility that does come. You have to sign banks, you have to be able to sign banks, you've got to be able to sign accounts, checks, things like that. There's also circumstances where, you know, I may recluse myself from signing a check, or I may, you know, we've had circumstances where that's been the case. I think defining, one, what the expectation is, two, I'm 100% in favor of saying, you know, what did you say, the odd years, every other odd year?
Yeah, that's what, I mean, that's one of the statutes out there
Since
that
we
gives
don't
guidance.
already have it in our charter.
But also, you know, going back and forth through the years, you know, with Choi and his time on the council, we've heard it called vice mayor, council president. I think we define that it is council president, and those duties are equal to. You won't hear any opposition to anything here. I think, you know, just identifying when that position is actually going to be truly needed. What should I pass away? It's truly needed.
Yep.
Should I be hospitalized for an extended amount of time? We can still communicate. There might still be a need for it. I go on vacation, it's not needed. So I think defining,
To some degree.
correct.
I will say, there was an instance where, during a recent issue we were having with personnel stuff where you were out of town, and I know Mr. Lamar wasn't available because he just didn't realize that he needed to be available, and there was some, it wasn't a big deal. We needed an agenda signed, and I think Courtney wound up getting it taken care of, but it was just a minor nuance of saying, hey, for the most part, you could have handled it, but this is one thing he needed to know, hey, I need you to be available to sign this, so. And that, I don't mean that negative at all, it was,
Not taking negative, not taking negative.
The only complaint I have is depending on the length that you do, getting all of those bank signatures is a pain in the butt.
that's why I think it should probably be 2 years instead of 1, personally.
And
Right
you-
now, I think it just goes the term of the person that it's gifted
And so
to.
you're off council.
Yeah.
And it could be that you reappoint the same person.
It could be.
It's not specified, from what I understand, in any of our city
No, I just mean,
documents.
I don't think it's specified anywhere, but.
Which means it
the
would
typical
revert to
process
what the
is-
state statute is unless we do something different. So I think right now, by default, probably should go where, what Tyler discovered, unless we change it and say, this is what we're gonna do.
Do you know where specifically in Title I, Chapter 5, Section 1, it brings it up? that specific thing, because it's in charter, but I don't see it in code.
I
Oh, there it is, sorry.
was gonna say, you're gonna make me
Council
dig.
shall elect from among its members, president of the council. It's almost exactly the same thing as charter, but it's in code, so. Obviously, if it were only in charter, it would take
Right.
over the people to change it versus,
And I think the charter version just says we shall have one, basically. Or we shall nominate, or we shall elect, or something like that.
yeah, elected by the council from its members who shall preside in the absence of or the disability of the mayor.
So, and here's the thing, absence of, there's some things, if you're on vacation, can wait, usually.
Right.
And then there's sometimes, it could be something small that needs to be done right then, it's small, it's not a big deal. And that's, hopefully you got whoever's council president's gonna know the balance.
Yeah, the current section says in the absence, disability resignation removal. We would probably need to define what absence is in my mind. Like,
Lori's favorite thing is to say, if I get hit by a bus, you need to know how to do this.
she's not wrong.
Stay away from those buses.
All right. So I do think, so the way it is, we're basically gonna be,
Well, I think we're gonna modify, I mean, we're gonna send it up to the council, hopefully to modify or clarify some language, and then just define a term.
that would be.
Is that everybody's understanding, hopefully?
I think, yeah, we want council to define a term.
Yeah, and,
And again, I think it would behoove, you know, you guys come with dates in mind, so we're not
yeah,
2.5 hours trying to decide what one of the 365 days is the best.
I agree.
My preference definitely would be a 2-year term at least, because, I mean, that's all you guys have anyway, so.
Yeah, and if somebody doesn't run, becomes unelected, whatever, then we would deal with that at that point, but,
Yeah, if they, like, I don't know, is Terry up for reelection this time?
yes.
Yeah, his word.
Yeah.
So if he didn't get reelected and it was
But at that
1 year
council
into it, it would,
hypothetically re-nominate him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at that
Mhm.
point, if he did not run or did not get voted back in, you guys would just,
we would
Pick
have
somebody
to
else.
choose again.
Yeah, and they would just go until that following year, or
Mhm.
whatever, the remainder of whatever that term would have been, probably, but
Yeah.
we can,
we can work that out.
All right, any other discussion? Call for vote,
Brown,
yes.
Gantier,
yes.
Shropshire.
Yes.
Number 15, discussion and possible action to recommend to council the adoption of an ordinance to clarify the responsibilities and duties of the city clerk.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, now this is to help define the roles, in which the council, this is what the council's, they're the one that sets the description of what the city clerk does, to help the city clerk give the council what the council needs to do its job, the statements and things, you know, financials, things like that, to try and keep it to where we get what we need so that we can function. It's,
We do have to make a statement here. The clerk's job, city clerk's job is an elected position. So she works for, or whomever works for the city of Pryor Creek. They do not work for the council.
per charter they do.
They provide the council information, and if the council requests them to do certain things, they can. But they are, the council is not their, if you will, boss, because they're an elected official.
I am the clerk of the council.
You are the clerk of the council,
Yes.
but
I do have a question though, because you said it and it was my question that I had anyway. Where in the charter does it give you permission to define my job duties? Because all I see is that council can instruct what records, says, and such other records as the council may instruct the clerk to keep. That's
Right.
the charter.
I'm trying to
That's
pull
right.
it back up, my system just glitched when I tried to go over from there. Okay, why is it doing that? Are you into the packet?
There you go.
Okay, into the packet.
So, just trying to assist, if you go, it's not in the charter, it's in the ordinance, and it's, Title 1, 6A,
2.
yeah, 2, I guess, duties. I haven't read them, but I know that expands more on what the duties are.
It says that I shall attend meetings of council, keep a journal of its proceedings as provided by law. I shall enter at length all ordinances passed by city council in the ordinance book as required by law. I shall keep the seal of the city and affix it to documents as required by law or ordinance. I shall keep such other records as the city council may instruct.
Right.
For revenues, financial transactions, I shall collect or receive revenues and other money for the city as provided by law. I shall keep proper books of accounts and other financial records, properly recording all financial transactions. And then my powers and duties prescribed by law is, it says he shall have all other powers and duties prescribed by law.
Well, the city clerk shall be clerk of the council is one of the things, which,
That doesn't mean that we're there, she doesn't work for us, she works with us.
But it also doesn't state other duties as assigned,
Mm-mm.
essentially.
let's see.
While he's looking at that, I would be interested if you talk to Chase on
I
if we
did
can.
last night, and he was very shocked to realize that there was nothing mentioned in here either.
Sorry, this was not even actually related to that. It's actually about cleaning up our ordinance book where it uses specific pronouns and to
Yeah,
be
I would
more
love-
they or them.
That's something that can be part of our codification.
It says he everywhere in there, and I just
It
don't
does.
think,
That's what I was thinking too.
I think it should say they,
I think,
personally.
Courtney, what are your pronouns?
stop.
Well,
That's
I'm not trying to
we're
get
not
a soapbox
going
on that. I
there.
just think that, I just think it should honestly be more inclusive language to say
Right.
they.
Well, you obviously
them.
know what year most of this was drafted, 1951.
51.
But we did get our codification draft back the other day, 2 days ago. So Chase and I get to sit and go through all of that, and that's where we can make all of those types of changes.
I don't know if that would require any action from us just to change. It does require action on us? Okay.
Any ordinance that we amend, we have to bring here. So
Okay.
we're probably just guessing, have 1 or 2 long council meetings going over all of the things that we're gonna have to change in that code book.
Is there any way, I would be curious if we could give an overarching
Blanket.
change on the ordinances to be this.
That is
If-
definitely
when you
something
talk to
I
him,
have to ask
I would
Chase
be
about,
curious.
but I don't know.
Okay, well,
Right. I think we have to be very specific on the ordinance document,
Okay.
what we're changing, so I don't think that would be possible, but maybe.
Well, one of the things is the powers of the council is they make the decisions on how the city operates, how it runs.
Read it off.
Well, let's see where it is. Legislative powers shall be vested in the city council composed of 2 councilmen from each ward and the mayor and the council may exercise such legislative powers as may be authorized by, not inconsistent with the Constitution and general laws of the state of Oklahoma and this charter, and shall set up judicial authorities that may deem necessary to enforce the ordinances of the city. The mayor and council shall have the executive and legislative authority over all affairs of the city, except those specifically delegated to the utility board herein. And the fact that the clerk, and here's the thing, sometimes you're asked to do things that really is not in your job description, and it keeps you from doing some of the things that council needs you to do to operate and function.
I would argue that we do have the legislative ability to add things to that specific ordinance. But I don't, whether or not we use our authority wisely, I guess is much like Congress. But I think that we do have the legislative authority to change job descriptions to some degree that are in ordinance. We cannot change charter. I don't, again, it's up to us to use it wisely, but I to Chris's point, I do think we have the legislative power to change ordinances to that end.
With that statement, I agree, obviously. 'Cause
Yeah.
Obviously you do, but
Well, I honestly think that there's several things on here that we really need to,
I
Try
would
to figure
definitely
out
like
what
more
this is
details
about.
on a lot of these items because I don't agree with most of them.
Well, it's
let's just run down the list.
It's a general summary. Go ahead,
Start with number 1.
You want me to read it? I've got it here.
you can.
Okay. Maintain all assigned city records as directed by the city charter. There's no problem with that, right?
Except, I mean, we have a retention policy, and this is all of the records that the city must keep, that the city has adopted. The departments have the ability to keep some records at their office. Some are designated to my office. Some are designated to my office by law. Some are designated to my office by this book.
But they are
But none
dictated,
of that is determined in charter.
but it says as dictated.
Right,
So
I'm just saying, I'm just.
Different
clarifying
people
that
have different things.
So, but what it's
This
saying is
is
if the
not-
charter says to do it, then it's not addressing the other issues. It's just charter, anything that the charter says.
Yeah, the charter just says that I'm responsible for.
The charter doesn't dictate much records outside of city council stuff, correct? Would that be accurate?
It just says, record of appropriations and expenditures, payments of indebtedness, minutes of all meetings of the council, and such other records as the council may instruct the clerk to keep.
Okay.
Which is where the retention policy would fall into play.
Okay.
Okay, the second one says assist any member of council as needed.
Not sure you need to tell me to do that. I don't know that I've ever not
This isn't
assisted you.
necessarily just you, this is the office.
Okay,
So don't take all of these things
But-
personal.
Well,
It's the office.
technically, this is being assigned to me, but
okay, so assist any member of council as needed. That's happening. Keep all committee chairs informed of any and all matters relevant to his or her committee, including meetings with his or her attendance would be pertinent.
And we addressed that one with that other thing that we
part
talked
of
about.
it, with keeping them informed, we did address previously. I'm curious on why I need to inform you of meetings that you would be pertinent to attend.
You give us an agenda.
That and we have
A
a
packet.
calendar every year.
If there's something coming up that you're aware of, that the committee chair would need to know, whether it's, you're having a meeting, let's say you're meeting with Brown's Insurance Company about something, that it might not be a bad idea for the committee chair to sit in just to kind of hear what's going on before, those kind of things.
Okay, well, this makes it seem like you're wanting me to tell you when to show up to your own committee meeting.
No, that's not at all what it is.
That's what.
It's, if it's something that's going on, you're meeting with prospective insurance people, something that would be pertinent.
So like normal business operation meetings.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean I can always be there, or whoever the chair is.
Or would that be better worded, including meetings relevant to your committee?
It's however you want to word it. This is like a stab in the dark. This is just something, a template to start from. So if you want to make some changes, I'm not,
A good phrase for that, yeah.
I'm not, you know,
Okay,
so.
so we're pretty much have an agenda. We pretty much have a packet to go with the agenda, things like that, correct?
Yeah, but like I said, if they're having other meetings that's going on that could be helpful, you know.
Well, I know that being in the budget and personnel, that when Brown and Brown has came, we have always been invited to come up, even in the middle of the day. But we came up as a committee a lot of times also, not just,
I'm gonna step to the
Hopefully
restroom,
not
save all the
highly-
good fighting until I get back.
okay.
I'll do my best.
All right, the next one is record and maintain records of all meetings, included executive sessions, except in the instance of potential conflict of interest.
We should
And,
wait for Tyler to get back before we say anything else.
all right, that sounds good.
That would be my request anyway.
Okay.
I would almost just recommend, you know, you talked to Chase today, Courtney?
I talked to Chase last night
Last
before,
night?
or after
Sorry.
the meeting.
I'm sorry, I thought. I would almost recommend we run this list by him and see what he would feel would be
Appropriate?
versus not. We do pay him for that advice, and I know that he did have some concerns about some of the things on this list, and that could, in the interest of time, save us.
I would still like clarification from them while we have them right here on quite a few, but I would love to also consult with Chase on a lot of these, if possible. I mean, I know it's 8 o'clock and I want to go home too, but
Yeah, I know that was something that Chase had requested today before this
Unfortunately, it's already come to fruition though, so.
Council passes it.
I wish we had a kind of a unforeseen business deal right now. Since we're on a break, I guess we call it a hiatus or something. Next Tuesday, council meeting, correct?
Yes.
What is the big thing next Tuesday?
Hopefully a quick meeting.
Huh?
Vote.
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole election for the whole country and everything. Let's try not to have a 6-page agenda.
Well, we have 14 items that'll be on that.
Do these have, that's the question I was gonna ask. Do all of these have to go to the first council meeting of next month?
There's nothing specifically stating that they do, but that is typically the procedure, yes.
Okay, typically, but is there any rules that says we have to do that?
No, because we don't have any committee.
I sure would like to kind of watch the returns. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but.
And there again, you know, just like I made that comment that, you know, somebody may request something be on an agenda and I might say, you know, might be better to wait 2 weeks or something on it.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm like you, this is a major deal, this election, so I get your sentiment.
All right, let's go to,
The only issue I would like to see us bring up is try to get the purchasing policy rolled out, but if you guys wanna wait 2 weeks, you wanna wait 2 weeks. The rest of it is not really as much of an issue in my mind as that one probably is, but
okay.
I'll respect that people may wanna watch some election results.
Yeah.
We have a big TV that we could turn them on to.
Okay, back to the agenda.
All right.
All right.
Record and maintain records of all meetings, including executive sessions, except in the instance of potential conflict of interest.
Obviously, my problem is the potential conflict of interest. Please define that.
Well, if this is any clerk, if you are having a situation where it could be a potential, like some people have been uncomfortable with the negotiations with the FOP for whatever
Why?
reason. And so that's been a request that several times that you not record those meetings.
But why do you believe that it's a potential conflict of interest for me to be recording minutes in negotiation executive sessions?
As I said, that has been brought up by others.
I'm just asking for clarification as to
Well,
why
what-
you believe that that's a conflict of
This
interest.
is a blanket statement that gives you the out that if there is a potential, you're not absolutely required to be there. And then it can be applied, and do you want to say something on that?
Yes, and it's gonna come across as brash, and I don't mean it as so. We don't owe anybody an explanation for why we don't want somebody in the room at the end of the day.
I understand that, and you guys do have the final decision on who goes in there, which is fine, but it's obvious that you guys only recuse me from being in there when it deals with the police department or FOP negotiations.
Yes, and it's because of your relationship status.
Okay, so my personal, private life has something to do,
Yeah, who you're involved in a relationship will have some bearing with that. Whether or not it's an issue or not to you, if the counselors perceive it as so, at the end of the day, it's the counselors' meeting to run as they should. I don't know that we have to put it in this personally, but I do think that it's up to us on who goes in that room.
that's fine. I just also disagree with, if you wanna keep me out of executive sessions for whatever reason, fine, but I don't feel that it's appropriate to keep me out of executive sessions because I have a significant other that may or may not work for another department in the city. We just had a case that we dropped you off of for almost the same thing.
Yes,
Just saying.
I'm happy to have a conversation with you about my involvement in that outside of these chambers, but
I would love to have had conversations about any of this prior to this coming out, so.
But the thing is, whether it's you or some other clerk in the future, if there's a potential, and if it says you're supposed to be there, this gives an out that if there's a potential, even if you choose to say, well, I'd rather not, it gives you an out.
I will say, for the rest of my time as city clerk, because you keep saying that it obviously could not be me too, that I would love to have notification prior to you guys leaving for the executive session that I'm not going to be attending. That would be really helpful.
Fair.
Very fair.
My question to that is she allowed to have a representative do that, or does it have to be an elected official?
It would have to, to
There's no,
record the minutes, it has to be a clerk or delegate. So if I had an assistant city clerk, I could
That's-
technically give that authority to that person to take minutes if they allow that person to come into the meeting.
the only requirement of anything being kept in an executive session is when we go in and the member's present,
And when we end.
and when we leave, correct? So it doesn't, there's actually no requirement that says it has to be a city clerk position or a clerk's position at all. I mean,
Okay.
it-
It's just that I'm
I
the clerk
was,
of the
Yes, ma'am.
council, so
yes.
who's responsible for all the minutes.
In fact, in an executive session, we can't take any notes and bring them back out or do anything either, so.
And
I-
things
I
that are
was
passed
seeking
out during that,
clarification.
we have to turn them back in. And that we can bring something in, but if we write notes on it, we have to turn it in.
I think you're just asking, is the office precluded or is it just the individual?
Well, my concern, of course, is the assistant city clerk's office is vacant. And in the fact that if there was a potential conflict, if there was someone else that she could delegate to go in. So that was my question, so. If,
Currently, I think we've delegated that to a member in the
Council
room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
council
Okay.
members
But-
have been taking notes. and-
Yeah, you
and
guys have
minutes.
delegated it for me. I delegated it to Chase last night, and I hope you got the minutes, but we'll see.
okay,
Okay,
thank you.
that's that one. Now let's go to number 5. It is not the duty of the clerk to approve whether or not information will be given to members of the council.
There again, that's just a statement. It's not a reflection of what you may have or may not have done. That is just a statement. That's just a job description, if you will.
I would
I don't know that,
like this to say more of specific information that you want given to you, not, you're not allowed to decide whether you get to give information to you or not. There is information that I cannot give to you guys, such as HIPAA violations. There's things like that that I'm
Well,
not
that's a
allowed to give.
statutorial thing. That's not, you're not making that decision. That's state law. It's
Right.
already decided.
if you tell somebody you do not have information, let's just take this as for an example, I'm just thinking about this. You haven't got all the figures that you need to give the report to us on the budget. You're not there, and somebody comes in and says, I want all the numbers on the budget. And you say, I can't give that to you, I don't have those, okay? You can't
I mean, I
produce
could give you
that,
numbers, but they're gonna be false.
That's not what this addresses.
What is it?
okay?
This is just like if, and here again, I'm not saying this has even happened. It's, if a member of council wants something for their job to be able to do on council, it's a policy.
Are you talking about like printing agendas off and stuff?
Not specifically, no.
What are you talking about then, so I can make sure that I'm giving you what you want?
It's just like if there's, basically,
Just spit it out.
anything that the council needs, they should be able to have access to it. There's nothing in the statute that's saying it. I mean, in the city, yes, I think
Can I approach the podium?
yeah, I'll allow that.
Okay. First, let me remind you, the city clerk, you all, the mayor, works for me, Terry, Bridget, and all the other taxpayers in town. Remember that. Also remember that I worked in that office for decades. I didn't work there decades, but for decades, there was a person in that position that didn't do anything as far as, I won't go any further, but let me just say, from my point of view, as a taxpayer that's paying her salary, looking in, she's doing a heck of a job.
Thank you.
And she's doing her job, which hasn't been done in the past. Now, she probably may need to work on her presentation sometimes, which we all have to do that. But she's doing a heck of a job. Let her do her job. That's all I need to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's, anything else we need to talk about on 5? Okay. Number 6, it is not the duty of the clerk to give opinions, only to record and retrieve necessary information.
Now, this one is specific. There's been some instances where, you know, the job of the clerk is to give us the information that we need to make a decision, not to try and influence a decision or say we can and can't do something.
Well, I'm gonna say something that, this is not here, but back when I used to work out at GRDA, there was a couple of ladies there that I would guarantee you knew more about what was going on than the biggest part of the rest of us. So if we were about to get ourselves into trouble, thank goodness they stepped in and said, hey, wait a minute. This is the way it is, and they helped us out a lot. And if we had to find something out or find out how to do something, they were the people that we contacted.
I'm not talking about things dealing with the job. If we don't know if we have enough money in account and you have that information, those things, yeah. Anything that's information that you give, your job that you have access, you share, absolutely. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But, and you know, telling somebody, you know, kind of almost taking over a meeting to a point where a fellow council member has to call to order that it's the mayor's meeting, not the clerk's meeting. And I've had numerous council members and numerous people in the city say, you know, she shouldn't be talking to y'all that way. Numerous.
Have you addressed her personally, privately?
Not a single council member has ever addressed anything like that.
I've heard them
Bruce
address
has
it in the council.
Made comments
Yeah.
after the fact in my office, but nobody's ever specifically addressed any specific situation like that to me.
I've heard it addressed in the council when it happened.
Other than Terry telling me that I can't speak, which did not go over very well with employees that conversed with me afterwards, I don't recall of any instances.
I will be way more direct with you than not beat around the bush.
Thank
There
you.
are times that you speak up with tone to council members that is probably not appropriate.
Yeah.
Specifically, I asked Zach for a point of order at the last council meeting because you did speak up at a time that was
Yeah.
probably something that Zach should have said. All I said was, it's your meeting, it's not hers. I don't even know if you heard me because I think you were still talking then.
Probably.
Personally,
I would like to say,
I would think if you can
Sorry.
work on your delivery, I think that the message you may be giving, and that probably can go for all of us to be said. I know that I can get pretty catty, and I know that I can speak with tone sometimes. At the end of the day, it is the mayor's meeting in which we are members of, and everybody else in the room, including you, are guest of. That being said, any guest speaking to the council needs to have some decorum about them. That is as bluntly as I can put it.
I think something more appropriate for the situation would be some rules for here, not rules for me.
That may be appropriate, but again, like I said, it's our meeting and everybody else in the room from that side of the table out is guest.
Which is why I'm saying if you want, why I think this would be best fit for rules for the entire room out here, not just me, but
Okay,
everybody,
yes. I
every
thought you were
guest.
saying everybody else but me. Sorry, I
No.
misunderstood what you said.
Every guest, not just put this on me.
Sorry, I misunderstood you.
I would just like to remind everyone here, as Nina did, that Courtney's job isn't an elected official. She is entitled to her opinions, and she may have them. Whether or not she voices them is not this council's concern. She is a human being who has opinions. She knows when to address and when it should not. And we're all probably have done that in the past. I know for a fact all of you have given your opinions when they haven't been asked for. This is uncalled for.
We haven't got there yet, so if we haven't got to it, then
This is exactly what we're on, number 6.
Mhm.
Number 6, she is a human being, and she has opinions just like everyone else in this room.
Well,
And it is not this council's place to tell the mayor, myself, or the city clerk that they cannot have an opinion.
it didn't say she can have opinion.
I think that's what this says.
What?
It's not the duty of the clerk to give opinions.
Well, it should say in the council meeting, that should,
Well, then it should have said that.
it should have
It's
said.
not the duty of the clerk to give opinions.
The clerk was elected to do the clerk's job, the council's elected to do the council's job. It's two separate things.
If we don't have the information that she has, we can't do our job.
And I have no problem with information being given. It's the opinions sometimes that come across in a way that's inappropriate.
Then discuss with her about the presentation and the delivery, and do that privately.
I will also remind you that just a few hours ago now, you let me almost change this entire thing by myself.
We were having.
That's not recording and retrieving information. I made lots of suggestions and gave my opinion on lots of things that you were trying to put into policy currently, so.
And the reason why, to be blunt and honest, because you as a department head, what you're having to deal with, that was an entirely appropriate discussion for us to have.
And unfortunately, my office handles a majority of things that are done in the city, and I have to have an opinion. I don't have to, but I have an opinion or have knowledge of how things work because of that. So it may not be specific to a department here, but I have to deal with everything. I have my hand in almost every department in some form or fashion of their operations.
Let's run to number 7. It is not the duty of the clerk to berate members of the council individually, electronically, or personally. It's probably not our duties to berate each other, like we sometimes do, but that's just part of the game. But, again, that's, like I said, that is something we could probably all work on, to be honest with you. Okay, number 8. Understand that the city council, along with the mayor, establishes policy, which is true. That's our job. The mayor's secretary is not under the authority of the clerk. However, the mayor may allow the secretary to assist the clerk at the mayor's discretion.
There
And
again, that's not saying that that's ever been a problem. It's just saying that the mayor, if he wants to if his secretary has free time and can help her, it's not a problem.
Chairman, can I ask you, just for my own clarification, because this isn't really a problem in the daily affairs of the city, how is that, in your opinion, Mr. Gonskey, a job duty for the clerk? So I retain full control over Jay, and I've relinquished the ability for her to help. That's been followed, that's been done. So Jay does the things that I have given permission to be done. And that's been a communication from day one. I'm just failing to see where that is actually a necessary job duty of the clerk, especially the way it's worded. To me, that one just, it doesn't seem like a job duty. It seems more like an obvious. So what I'm getting at on that one is, there hasn't been any job that Jay has done that I haven't approved to be done.
And this is one that's just a general. It had nothing to do specifically with her.
Well, I'm just trying to make sure that we understand that that's not ever been a question, that's not ever been an issue. That's my employee, and we have a good relationship between the two of us. There's never been any, minus times when we were shorthanded, and I kept some records, which I promise that probably won't happen again, those records.
No, it won't.
Not in the best interest
But
of
like
the
I said,
city.
some of these
But the
things
idea
are
is,
just general statements, and if it doesn't fit, we don't
Then
have,
can we-
we don't even have to deal with it.
Can
That
we
could
go
be-
through and change that to city council approved general statements or duties of the Pryor Creek City Clerk's office? Because I feel like that's not,
Wait, say that again? I didn't catch it all.
basically, city council approved statements or duties of the Pryor Creek City Clerk's office. Since you said earlier this is for the office, I just don't feel that that's even that's not something I would ever put on the table as being a duty of hers to, that's more a general reminder for everybody that, you know, Jay is my secretary, and I allow Jay to do things. We have a very good understanding what Jay is allowed to do. That communication is between Jay and I, and then Jay goes to her and says, I have things, I can help you out. So I think we need to, and I think this was part of Chase's thing, is to look at the things that are actually duties versus reminders of how we think things should go.
Are you feeling that that one should just be removed or change the wording?
100% like that one should be removed, and I'm trying, I am respectfully allowing,
I don't have a problem with that coming off.
because it's not a duty, that's in no way a duty, that's a,
Fellow committee members, you have a problem with that one coming off?
I don't.
Check it off.
I didn't know we were.
I was gonna ask, I was
making
getting ready to ask,
decisions
are we keeping other things on and leaving some
Well,
off?
but I mean,
don't-
if we do, that's already automatically off. I'm not
Okay.
saying we have to do anything with this. I'm just saying that one, if that's something that,
that's all I have to say on that. We can go on if you're
All
ready.
right, number 10, the city clerk shall be clerk of the council and shall, with the mayor, sign and attest all ordinances and resolutions.
that either came from the charter or the ordinance.
That's straight
So
up.
I'm sure we need to add it in another ordinance again in the,
I think it might have been in the charter. Or
It's
something.
in
I don't-
both.
It's got her signature line on the things that has to be signed.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to number 11. Department heads are the keeper and custodians of department records. They are expected to cooperate with the clerk. However, they are under the authority of the mayor, not the clerk.
Those pieces came together out of either the ordinances or the charter. It's just,
well,
because, you know, there's some records they keep, there's some that you keep, and y'all supposed to cooperate. So this is just more of a interaction thing?
then I would say that it also needs to be removed, much like most of the items on here, because I'm the custodian of the records, and we have a retention policy that defines what records the departments are allowed to keep and what records I'm required to keep. I don't think we need another ordinance specifying all of that.
Well,
So
this is more for
Does the-
cooperation.
does the mayor,
We already have that. I don't think we need it duplicated.
does the mayor, do you go check department records?
If I'm needed to.
But I mean, is that was that one of your normal duties, or are they usually checked by the clerk or some of her people?
If they're needed to be checked by the clerk, she will check them. If I need to go look at something, I will go look at them. I'll call them and have them bring it.
But I mean, as a normal record, you don't go by and inspect.
I don't have a cycle where I go, hey, Carrie, I'm coming to see.
I'm
all
gonna
your
check your
around."
records or anything.
I don't make the rounds just to
Right,
check records.
that's not something that's a part of your normal duties, right? Now, is that part of your stuff to make sure their records are up to date?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
That's like my
That
main
is-
job duty.
I guess part of the city clerk's duties is to make sure that those records are correct? I mean, not necessarily falls in your lap.
Well, you know, we have department heads for a reason. Those department heads, and luckily, we're very blessed in our city with good department heads.
Yeah,
Every
big
one
time.
of them is rock solid. I will say, you don't wanna, get on Buddy's bad side, he'll unleash fury on you. But the idea is that there is every now and then occasion where a department head will come in and, like we heard earlier, we're all human. There's times where one will come in and try to, I'm not gonna say vindictively or maliciously try to do something, but for example, this purchasing policy, we've had times where it's like, it's not how it works, we need to go back, revisit it, do it again. But there's also times where we've seen in the past, in some departments that have created, let me rephrase that. There have been situations in the past where previous department heads or previous people in those positions have not kept proper records. And that has cost us lots of money, unbeknownst to us.
Believe it or not, that's not their forte, right? Records
Well,
keeping.
The idea is that it's our responsibility to know what they should be keeping, their responsibility to know what they should be keeping, their responsibility to keep up to that. And yeah, ultimately, it falls on the city administration, the elected officials to make sure those jobs are done. We all took that oath. And so, there is an element of trust there that they're gonna do what they're supposed to. And, you know, if we feel the need to check those, whether it's Courtney or myself, her being the keeper, me being the mayor, I can say, and I'm just saying arbitrarily here, BK, I'm coming to look at your records. I wanna see something. As can most anybody that you know, if it's a record that can be of open request. If it's an employee file or something, I have the autonomy to do that. I can go in and say, I need to see those. And so we know and we expect that those records to be kept as per the policies that are set forth by the council of the retention.
And typically, department records that are kept at the department are of no importance to us as far as making sure that laws are followed.
Or any audit issues or anything.
Correct. Anything that is of importance to us is kept here already.
Okay.
So another one that is pointless.
All right, number 12, the city clerk has no authority over the city council and will act in such a manner as inconsistent with the fact.
We have had times where we've been instructed that we couldn't go do this or do that. We've had emails come in that you've told us we can't do this, we can't do that, and we may have needed information for us to make decisions.
Oh, I think you might be referring to when,
All caps and red?
not even that one yet. I was talking about visiting a insurance agency for the city or discussing information with this insurance agency for the city without consulting with the people that run the city during normal
No, that wasn't,
business operations.
that wasn't.
Okay.
The council received an email on what we were and we're not gonna do when we needed to get information.
Was it
So-
interfering with normal business operations or asking you to schedule a meeting with me before just barging into my office and
It was
interfering with the normal
It was a pretty
business
scathing,
operations?
it was a pretty scathing and offensive email, and I've had several that have come to the council collectively.
So I think that, Mr. Chairman, would go to, as we talk about some of these things, not just here, we've talked about general council chamber decorum. I think that would be a decorum issue, you know. I think the guidelines at her office, I would imagine that she would have the right to say, I need you to make an appointment with me. Let me know you're coming. I'm not, that's her office, that's not my office. But what I would say is that almost to an element, some of these, like number 9 that we pulled off, or this one, feels more like rather than a duty, this is a little bit of a write-up. And so I would ask that if we could just consider really, you know, you look at the one that says, I'm going to say, for example, like number 10, albeit already in there, it is a duty. The city clerk shall be clerk of the council and shall with the mayor sign and attest all ordinances. That is defining a job, that is doing, that's not saying, well, you gotta send us this email, we didn't like it, so, you know, that one instant. I think on the day-to-day, let's stick to the duties, not the things that made us upset. I think even to Tyler's comment, you know, we talk about decorum, we've addressed that. Those are decorum issues. I think and this is again where when Chase called me this afternoon, he was a little concerned that some of these he needs to really look at in terms of duties, as we say, council approved duties of the Pryor Creek City Clerk's office. So.
And while you're on that subject, if Chase wants to look this over, don't put it on the next agenda. Let him look at it, give him some time to look at it. You're not gonna offend me if you hold this off, not put it on the first one.
We talked about that. He wants to look at it before council
Yeah.
approves it. So it'll probably go to him to review. And when it's ready, he can say, I'm done with it, and here's my thoughts.
I think the best action, if it's gonna be completely redone, is to have it come back to this committee before going to council, if it's gonna be in.
And I'm not opposed to that. Like I said, this is just a discussion point. If I'm in error on some things, or it should be handled differently, we could deal with it, but I just know that I've had some people come to me and were frustrated, both on council and elsewhere. And to the point where, I mean, I've literally had some people saying this has gotta stop. So this is a start, and if it's not the best way of handling it, I'll apologize, maybe, but there's some things that need to be not continuing.
Well, I guess what I'm getting, I'm not gonna rush this, but I'm skipping ahead to number 15, for example. The clerk is not the mayor's assistant. Well, no duh. I'm just saying. I don't mean that to be like, in the nature of not being around much, no doubt, we know that.
Nor do I want to be, just so you guys know.
Jay does a great job, go back to number 9. But I think what we're doing is we're inputting, and this is more counsel to the list, is we're letting a little too much of our own opinions fall into that. We're kind of saying, nobody at any point, nor has it been said or implied that she is a deputy mayor or the mayor's assistant. And we just went through and discussed that the council of the president will perform the mayor's duties in my absence.
Yeah, and like I said, he worked on some things I worked on. This is this is not me saying that you're doing this. What this is saying is, you've got your stuff to do, and if the mayor can't do it, it should fall to the council president so that you can continue doing those things that you have to do. This is not a slap at you at all.
So again, I
Okay.
just wanted to say, let's just keep the duties to duties, and not the.
On the emails, I wasn't here then, so you do prefer red in all caps? when you want
Yes.
Tyler Brown?
For your
I do,
attention?
But Bruce does not.
Oh,
Bruce
okay.
does not, and Terry does not.
And
Okay.
Chris does not.
I didn't hear
and
about
some
Terry's
others do
complaint.
not.
I will say though, that if anybody, council, citizen, whoever, even if they live in another town, I don't care, has a problem with anything that I do, feel free to email me or come talk to me. You're not gonna hurt my feelings by bringing something up to me.
Yes.
Doing something like this does hurt my feelings, but coming and talking to me like an adult and having communication is absolutely normal, and it's okay.
And to the point of whether or not council, I haven't appreciated the way that you've spoke to some of the council members. You haven't spoke to me that way, so I can't personally take offense, and it's probably not right for me to take offense on behalf of somebody else. I didn't think it was proper. I've addressed that with you, but honestly, at the end of the day, that falls on him. It's his meeting to control and to tell you that it's not appropriate. And if we want to correct some of that, we probably should be pointing more at him than we are at her in those specific instances. No different than it's on him to keep us under control when we're not behaving appropriately.
To be real honest with you though,
Can you put that on the list for me? Keep you guys.
Does he get his own list?
Wait.
to be real honest with you, she really doesn't work for him. She works for Nina.
No, I'm saying as far as things occurring in council chambers, it's honestly it's on his shoulders to control it. And
In a meeting, yeah.
it's.
And if it's a committee meeting, it would be the committee chair.
Yeah.
Whether or not
If
we
it's a
feel it's
board
appropriate
meeting,
or
it
not
would-
appropriate,
yeah.
however she chooses to voice her opinion is honestly on the mayor to rein back in. No different than it's on him to rein us back in when we're
Well, shoot,
bullying each other.
let's knock this thing
We're
out.
so close, guys.
I think we
All right.
only have the 14, right?
Well, number 25, or number 13, the 25th of each month, that's already
Yeah,
been
we've already
taken care of,
discussed
so
that.
that's out. Okay, 14 is, as a department head, the city clerk shall be responsible for assisting in the development of the city clerk's budget. It is not the job of the city clerk to develop budgets for other departments.
And I will say why I said this.
Fine.
In a council meeting, you told us the reason why you couldn't give us certain things that we needed is because you've been working on the budget so many different times. Which, your budget with your department, you typing up the stuff, I may have misunderstood what you said.
I think you heard me clearly, obviously, because you were able to repeat what I said, but I think you misunderstood what's happened in the past, which is the clerk has never assisted with the budget in any form. And we did a heck of a lot of cleanup this year together, getting this budget to what it was from what it was
There were
in years
2 days
past.
we sat dangerously close in my office.
I used his computer and he used his laptop, and we worked on this, so.
And I also would add to that, just for council reminder, that we did, as we've done this process, we were very clear about it before the get-go, that this is also the first year that we have used Cassell for this process,
Instead of an
rather
Excel
than the 30-page Excel spreadsheet that has no formulas.
Right.
Janina knows exactly what one it is, because it's
Yellow and
the
green.
same one they've used for, I don't even know how long.
Yeah.
And there was an element of that, and I'm not
Then I'll-
offending, what I'm saying is, please, people understand, there's an element of that with Cassell that I didn't have access, don't have access to, and don't understand or know, because that's not my.
You don't want access to it, right?
Well,
He has view-only access, kind of like you guys now.
Right.
ish.
Yeah,
We're
it's
having
the
a-
real Cassell view-only.
The idea is, there were a lot of things this year, and I will say, I will be the first to say, I've told her many times, I appreciated more than anything her help in facilitating, getting the numbers, getting it through, getting it done. So, going forward, I think if the mayor chooses to ask the clerk for some help on that, I think that's an appropriate choice to say, hey, help give me some numbers, help me get some stuff finalized.
And at no point did I develop the budget numbers for any certain department. Those numbers came from department heads specifically that he is coordinated with them, that I helped determine were whatever. I didn't even really do much with that, just clean up the other crap, so.
Is that the last one?
Yeah, that was it.
That was the last one, and I would recommend that the motion
Councilor
be changed to no action or something, or,
Did I have the motion? Okay,
I don't know
I'll,
who had the motion.
Shropshire did.
no action, please.
Second.
Can I ask the clerk a question about something she cited earlier? Was that 6A2 that you looked at? Maybe I missed a number on that when we were talking about. I'm trying to write some notes down. In this item, that is 8. Was that 6-A-2 that you looked at?
Oops, sorry.
You can give me that tomorrow. That's
Yeah,
okay.
so say I don't know.
Do that later. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. I don't know of anything else, so I guess,
Well, we got to vote on that one.
yeah,
Even though we're not really taking action, I think it's proper to vote on it.
yeah, we
Yes.
talk about.
Also, that's my opinion, so, Gantier.
Well.
It's your meeting to be under control here, sir, not.
Yeah, get it under control.
I'm not one to be offended by tongue-in-cheek like that. That was in good taste, in my
Chris, we're so
opinion.
close. Let's do number 17.
We have to vote.
Vote
She asked
for-
for your vote on
Yes,
that.
your vote.
For no
Yes,
action.
your vote.
Yes.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
I was just giving her a hard time like she gave me one.
you had it coming. 16.
I thought that
Is
was
it
the
to
last
adjourn?
thing, right? So adjourn? Is that the next one on there?
I closed my computer,
I
so.
think so. Was unforeseen business, and there's no unforeseen business, so now you can adjourn.
But I have to have a motion. It's a
I'll
motion.
make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay.
Good conversations tonight, guys. Appreciate it.
Shropshire,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gantier.
Yes.
All right. It's about like it was last night, about 9 o'clock. I've got
And thank you
Gotta
for
get it.
the strip.
to